for coming out. I hope no one had any incidents either on the street or on the sidewalks coming in, but we appreciate it. Linda, would you call roll call, please?
Dave Line?
Here.
Pyrus de Carvalho? Soldner?
Here.
Inskeep?
Yes.
Decant?
Here.
Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kim, good morning, and thank you for braving the weather and joining us this morning.
Absolutely. My name is Kim Beery, and I'm a pastor at Trinity United Methodist. Will you join me in prayer? God of all mercy, thank you for this day filled with opportunities to do good and care for others. Lord, we are inspired when Olympian athletes come together from around the globe to compete in a sign of unity. We are crushed when a shooter takes 17 innocent lives, and many times we wonder if the light will overcome the darkness. Yet you remind us that you are always with us. You are always the light, and you provide. Remind us of your presence today as you lead your people through this meeting. Be with our leaders as they work together and lead us for the good of all. For it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
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 Great. Thank you, Kim. Next item.
Item 4A, Introduction of Tech Artists.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. I'm Meryl Dye, the Assistant City Manager. As you know, we have a new display in the chambers and also the chamber conference room for our gallery exhibit, which will be here for 12 weeks. And this is a truly colorful and inspiring exhibit, one of the best that we've had so far. And I'd like to introduce Dorinda Simmons, who is one of the special projects directors at Tech, and let her introduce you to the artists. I told you last time that we were going to put faces to the names of the artists.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Thank you so much for the opportunity of being here. Going to introduce you to our artists and also give you a short overview of the services that we provide in our art studio. I am assuming that you guys are well aware of Tech and the services that we provide. Our Adult Life Skills is housed in the former Midwest Feed building, and in the back of that building is an art studio, and there's all sorts of amazing art that is created there. We have a lot of fun there, but it is also a lot of hard work. A lot of the pieces of art that you see reflect probably close to 2 months worth of work on them. It's not that they're working on it every day, but we do have a schedule that is followed, and we always focus on making sure that art stays a positive experience. And so if there's a particular day that our artists are saying, you know, I really don't feel like painting, that's fine. So anyway, our artists have different schedules. We've got some that work in the community. We have some that work at our sheltered workshop. And there's others that are at our Adult Life Skills Monday through Friday. It's just a day habilitation program. Also want to introduce Julian Stropes, and he is our on-staff artist that works alongside our client artists and teaching them and helping them to further improve their art skills. Hats off to him. There's probably, I don't know how many projects going in there. I'm going to guess at 60. Very easily that there's 60 different projects going at one time. Not that we're working on them all at one time, because usually there's only about anywhere from 2 to 6 that are in the studio at a given time, so that we make sure that there's enough hands to help coach our artists. This program has, we've always done art as a part of Tech. However, we've had a more focused effort on art in the last 4 years, and it has been truly amazing, the art skills that we have seen in our clients. One of the things that has been truly amazing is to see the confidence that is boosted through art. We have some that initially thought they can't create art. We had some that were very nervous when their art was on display for the first time and unsure of how to interact with others. Through this, our artists have learned to develop their social skills as well as their art skills. We also work on cleaning up after we are done, creating our art. There's just all sorts of skills that are learned through this process. I'd also like to introduce Ari Warnke to you all. She is Director of Supports and Services. She's my supervisor. And then I'd like to introduce our artists. We've got Stephanie Drews. You want to wave? Jennifer Walton.
Hello.
Andy Barkley.
Hello, Andy.
Joey Holmes.
Joey.
Jeremiah Tolbert. John Healy. Stan Ballman. And Kelly Bringle. So,
Doug?
oh, thank you. Doug Hollingsworth is with us today, too. Sorry about that. So, anyway, do you guys have any questions for me?
Well, welcome to all of you, and I'm impressed by anybody who can make a person look like more than a stick figure, which is the best that I can do. So your work is impressive. I've had a chance to look at all of it, both in here and in the room behind us, and would encourage anybody who comes to the city building to come in and as long as the room's not in use, please go back. And of course, there's several more. So excellent work. I'm impressed. And thank you for the good work that Tech does as well.
Sure. I also want to just thank you guys for the opportunity of being able to display the artwork here and for the opportunity of sharing with you all this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for brightening up 2 Tuesdays a month for me.
Yeah.
It's always nice to see bright, vibrant colors and beautiful pictures. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the exuberance that
Very
all
much
of
so.
them show is so
Evident, isn't
fun.
it?
Absolutely. Thank you again.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Be safe out there.
try.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
Morning, Todd.
Good morning.
Good
How are
morning.
you?
Great.
I don't know if did you already introduce me?
You're fine.
Oh, I'm fine, okay. I'm Todd Davis, the Director of Information Technologies. The IT group is going to bring up my screen back there, hopefully. John said, I ran into him last night and I said, this presentation is only going to take an hour. And he said, no! So anyway, so I'm going to go really fast. And if at some point you want me to slow down, please say so. So my presentation today is on a project that we're doing, and we're essentially saving the city a whole boatload of money. But I wanted to talk a little bit about what IT is first, because we kind of run in the background, and the only time you hear about IT is when something went wrong. And so I wanted the opportunity to talk about a little bit of our wins. And so John kindly gave me that opportunity. So what is IT? The budget book says the IT department is responsible for services and support to all computers, networks, printers, telephones, cell phones, devices, television, websites, social media, audio, video, and internet connections. That really doesn't describe all we do. We also cover software, software and hardware maintenance, user support, citizen support, security, which includes user security, cybersecurity, physical building security. We do training, we watch what's going on for the future, and we innovate. So that's a really long sentence, but the fact is the real purpose of IT is to improve productivity using technology. Just 4 words. Improve productivity using technology. So the IT department's just like every other department in the city. We have needs. You know, we get by with a really, really small staff. And so we've got to find interesting, unique ways to get the work done that we've got to get done, which is making everybody work better. So some of our needs are, we need more bandwidth. So if you take a look at the city map, and I turn on the names of all the buildings, you can kind of see a little bit of what I have to keep track of. And these are just the individual buildings in the city where we have telephones, or we have television, or we have data, we have email, all these different things going on. We need a better way to connect all of those buildings. So those connections are too slow now for services like our timekeeping system. Our new finance system runs really slow on some of these outside buildings. Fire support, they're doing a lot more with technology now. Video training, webcasts, webinars, all these kinds of things that are coming, and our network is just too slow to handle it. Another IT need is our escalating communications cost. Even though this is a slow network, it's getting more expensive, and the price just keeps going up. We also have trouble when you run in a really small department, you've got knowledge silos. So somebody knows something that somebody else doesn't know. If they get hit by a bus, we're in trouble. So we don't want anybody to get hit by a bus, obviously, but we need to cross-train. And it's difficult to do because we all have work to do all the time, every day. So we're also not able to fill requests like we've had recently requests for Wi-Fi in the parks. And so we really don't have a very good way to do that. So, and then of course we need more space. We're just like all departments. You know, we fill up every corner of the space that we're given, and we've got new things and all the more computers coming in or old computers going out, so we really need more space. So how do we solve these problems? Well, first, the first thing I did was take a look at where are we now. So right now we have a what was called a private fiber network, and that connects from the IT building, which is my little building over here across the street from Hutch-Bag, to City Hall, to the Fire Resource Center, and that also connects to Memorial Hall. So that is right now our owned, in other words, we own every bit of that. We also have a Cox-provided network, and that network was designed in 2012 and implemented, and it was designed to be able to handle voice over IP telephones. We were spending like $30,000 a month on phone bills, and so we went to a voice over IP phone system and dropped that down to about $9,000 a month. And it also was designed just to handle email and some light communications traffic, which was very adequate for the time. But as I mentioned, we need more bandwidth now. We've leased some fiber over time to get faster connections to places like the deep disposal wells and to the wastewater treatment plant. So those leased fibers, those are very expensive. And then, of course, our private fiber. So we started evaluating what we were going to do to get those connections to all these buildings. So we looked at a lot of possibilities. So we need more bandwidth. What if we just increased our current connection? The quote we got from Cox was looking like it was going to be an additional $25,000 or $30,000 a year, and I wasn't going to be able to get budget for that. We're in a really tight budget time. You guys are sensitive to budget increases. I've got to find another way to do it. We looked at other providers, other ways of doing it. We talked about maybe a dark fiber. To buy dark fiber is extremely expensive a month. So again, that number is very high. How about build our own fiber? So the connection between the IT building and the public works facility alone, they quoted in the $250,000 range. So it's very expensive to build fiber. So another thing we looked at when we looked at building fiber was, if you look at these black lines on the screen, each one of those is a railroad. And each one of those connections is a $20,000 request. So when I send in my request to be able to go either under or over a railroad, I also have to send them a $20,000 check. And if you look at this connection right here, for me to get from here to Fire Station 3, which you can almost see from here, is $20,000, $40,000, $60,000 just to get over to that one building. It's just insane, the costs. So we're looking for continued ideas. So I started talking to other cities, talked to other counties, talked to the school systems, talked to colleges, talked to other businesses, and did a ton of research. And we finally came up with what I think is a great solution. I presented that solution to John last August, and that solution includes reorganizing the IT department and building our own, mostly wireless, wide area network. And so that network is something we'll own, we'll control, we get to update it, we get to see the performance improvements from it. We pay for it one time and don't have to continue to pay for it. The issue about wireless wide area networks is they're mostly line of sight, which means that you've got an antenna on one end, an antenna on the other. They need to be able to see each other. So if you think about that, we really need to get up in the air in order to do that. So we recently had a building that was vacated, and that's the Fire Resource Center. So right now there aren't any fire people in there. They're just storing things there, and it's a really cool old building. So if you look at this picture, there, right on that, where my little mouse cursor is, that's one of those antennas that for the wireless wide area network, because we have height at the Fire Resource Center. So I need other height. I need to get around the rest of the city. Let's think about that for a second. What do we have that's high? Well, water towers, and they're all over the place. So, and you can just about see them from everywhere, right? And you can put those little antennas on the top of them, and nobody's going to notice or care. It's not ugly. So now we've got a plan. How do we implement it? So the first thing we did was we looked around the city and say, okay, who can help us? IT's a really small department, so we need help with this project. So I contacted the GIS and SCADA guys because they've got control knowledge. They understand how water towers work and how you get inside and how you mount radios and things. We talked to the park department. They're helping us with building and electrical knowledge. We talked to dispatch because they've got radio maintenance and they've got guys that get up on towers all the time. And we talked to the garage, and they're helping us build mounts, so we can put radios on things without having a bunch of expense. So we did a test site, and I'm going to just show you what we have done. Our first site was connecting the IT comm building, which is what I'm calling the old Fire Resource Center, to the Public Works facility. So at the Public Works facility, we had a 15 megabyte connection, and when we put in the new wireless wide area network, we went from 15 megabit to 1500 megabit. So we had 100 times performance increase. It was really astounding how good that came out. We also did a test site at Fire Station 3. So that little connection there went from 2 megabit to 400 megabit. So I was able to disconnect those two sites. The Public Works site was an $800 a month bill. The Fire Station 3 site was a $200 a month bill. So essentially, I paid for those radios in 3 months, in the first 3 months that we had them up. So we decided that we're going to go forward with the plan. So we started putting more sites up. We went to the animal shelter from Public Works, to the zoo, to the park building. Again, this was a $500 connection, $300 connection, $200 connection. And then we added a new connection to the home builder shelter. That wasn't supposed to go away like that.
Call IT support.
Yeah, I know that guy. So we added connections to the golf course maintenance. You can see this little leg here. That's a future leg because we're going to be able to help out the Hutch Rec and provide signal to them since we're already here at Salt City Splash and Hobart Deader. And so again, that series of connections saves us about $2,600 a month. So let's continue on with the network. Where are we going from here? I just got an agreement with a tower climber to climb Tower 2. We're going to work on this end. They're going to work on that end, and so we'll be able to get connections to all these buildings: Fire Station 5, Fire Station 1, the Water Treatment Center, Fire Station 6, $1,400 a month. Then we're going to connect to the Water Tower 3 over by the airport. And that connection, your Water Tower 4, Fire Station 7, the airport maintenance, Fire CTC, the deep disposal wells, wastewater treatment plant. So we're starting to fill in our network now. So we've got a bunch of auxiliary sites that we're also going to be able to connect to. So we've got this connection, this little singular connection to make to Water Tower 1. And from there, we'll be able to get clear out to Fun Valley. And then once we get done with all of those loops, or all of those connections, then we're going to make what I call the backhaul loop. So we had one incident for 2 hours where this park connection went down, and that was because the antenna got covered in that really super wet snow we had that one day. And so it's very rare that that's going to happen, and we found a solution so that won't happen again. But I still want to build a loop so there's another path for any one connection to get through. So why would we want to do this? Okay, so the first year, that's in 2018, I estimate we're going to save about $146,000. Now, you got to keep in mind that that's not $146,000 in one account. That's across 50 accounts. Mm-hmm. So you're not really going to see it as a huge savings because it's a savings across the whole city. In future years, I'm estimating we'll save about $180,000 per year. So I told the department heads that they can't have that money. That's going to be savings, so essentially it'll just drop off of their budget. They're not going to be able to replace it with something else. So John supported me on that idea, of course. So, and we noticed those bandwidth increases. So when we did our tests at Fire Station 3, they went from not being able to hardly even work to being able to do anything they needed to do. So they can video chat, they can do their training or whatever they need. It's easy to add additional services now, like Wi-Fi in Grasshopper Park, Avenue A Park, or George Pyle Park. It's simple to add those kinds of services now. So, and since IT and GIS and SCADA are all working together, we're cross-training. So the IT or the network administrator really knows about how the SCADA system works. The SCADA people kind of knows how the phone system and the other parts of the network work. So we're eliminating some of those silos. So I wanted to list a few cool side effects and then get out of here because I'm about running out of my hour. So some of the neat things that are going to happen because of this, first off, we'll save a lot of fuel and save a lot of time. So right now, every time the fire department wants to meet or talk about anything, a whole bunch of guys get in a truck, and a truck goes over somewhere else, and they talk for an hour, and then they all load back in the truck, and the truck goes back home. So that's just crazy. Now we'll be able to just put a camera on something and say, okay, everybody gather around this television, and we won't have to roll that truck. We won't have to take all that time to move people around. That's just one example. Another great side effect of this is we'll be able to save that cool old fire station. So we're going to move IT over into that building. We're going to sell the IT building, or hopefully. That means we'll have a new building on the tax rolls, and we'll be able to use the proceeds from that sale to do things like repair the roof and put new flooring down, that sort of thing. So, and then that building also has those great garages. So we'll be able to be able to find some savings, and we'll be able to store things like the meter reader truck. Right now it's outside all the time, and that they have $50,000 of equipment that they take out of the back of the truck and they bring inside every morning, and just so somebody won't run off with it in the middle of the night. But that's really hard on the equipment. It's not designed to be taken out. And so instead of doing that, we'll just pull the truck in the building, lock the doors, and we're done. So I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you a little bit about IT, about this great project that we're doing. Oh, and one of the things that I didn't bring up because I need to pile on a little bit is once we build all this, we'll have the ability to add other services. So if you look at all these blue dots, those are all water towers, which means we'll be able to get to water towers. So if we have vandalism somewhere, for example, which we have a lot of vandalism and graffiti at the water towers, we'll put up a security camera. We'll be able to see what happened there. So lift stations, the same idea. Storm sirens, again, we'll have control over all of these little dots on here. We'll be able to add things like the mattress dumping site, the illegal mattress dump. We'll be able to put a camera up there, and the other end will be at the police station. When somebody dumps a thing, we'll have their tag, and we'll go give them a visit. It won't take very many of those kind of visits for that illegal dump to go away. But there's really no good way to do that until we get this built. So can I answer any questions for you? Do you have any IT questions? Any questions about the wireless wide area network?
You mentioned your staff. What is the staff size?
So we have 4 full-time employees. We have me, the network administrator, a technician, and Connie, who does is our communication specialist, website, social media, information outlet. So really small team for the 1,500 devices that we manage.
So Todd, when you talk about when you build this, give me the chronology of a time frame for all of this.
2 weeks for this connection up here, and then it takes a day to do each one of these connections. So mid-March
Really?
for all these, and then the airport manager's just dying. He told me he would climb Tower 3 himself, and I don't really want to do that. I'd rather be safe than have the airport manager on top of a water tower. So hopefully by the end of March I can have that connection up, because he's starting to try and bribe me and things, and we want to stay away from that. So hopefully the end of March, if we can get the weather to cooperate. It's hard to get people up on top of a water tower when it's 50 miles per hour outside.
Yeah, when the ice is coming down.
Hey, Todd, I want you to just comment, and I don't want to belabor or take much more time, but there was in the recent stories in Hutch News, and there were some internet or email exchanges about City of Chanute, who had a city-owned internet service, if you will. And I kind of want to talk about why that is, and maybe why that isn't necessarily feasible for us.
So obviously the railroads are an issue for us that they don't have in Chanute. Chanute built their fiber optic network really early. So they've had it for a long time, and they built it because there was no other providers that would come. So AT&T wouldn't come. Their local phone guys didn't want to do fiber optics. Their television provider didn't want to do fiber optics. They did everything on poles. So when government doesn't have have a commercial option, then they can build it themselves. So we have lots of commercial options. We get our internet right now from Cox. AT&T is here. Zayo is here. IdeaTech is here. The New Tech, not New Tech.
Next Tech.
Next Tech.
Yeah, Next Tech. So there's lots of options here, and for us to build, we're talking, for us to build a network like I'd like to see would be in the $500 million range. So it's just unreasonably expensive for us to try and build. We would have to, the city of Lawrence did it, but they did it with KU and a lot of federal, a lot of Regent dollars went into building their networks. So they partnered. We don't really have that kind of a partner here. The HCC's essentially got their network already. The school system's already doing what they want to be doing. I've talked to them all. So we talked to all the vendors, we talked to all the schools and everybody that tried to find a partner, and we really couldn't. So fiber just doesn't make sense for Hutchinson. Plus, the silly railroads are just impossible to deal with. I shouldn't say silly railroads. The fabulous railroads, we love them. So
But
Thank
they
you
are an
for that.
impediment to deal with.
they are difficult to deal with.
What's the capacity? I mean, is this Wide Area Network going to be able to handle all
So
the stuff that you put up there and still have some reserve, or what?
it's got so much reserve we can't even. So the 15 megabit connection from IT to Public Works was saturated all the time, which means that when people were trying to work, they would have to pause for a few seconds and wait for something else to clear before they could work. So now, if I was to bring up a chart of the network saturation, where it was, we would be in the 70 to 90 range all the time. That chart hovers in the 4 to 6% range all the time. So it seems like we overbuilt. But if you think about the way we're connecting things out, we've got all these connection points coming back in. We don't want to make those a bottleneck. So those need to be big connections. And if we look at this chart, you're looking at what, 150 or 200 possibilities here. So we're overbuilding the backbone, but the individual endpoints are going to be very well done. They'll have plenty of data capabilities, but it's easy to upgrade in the future. So we're using little $56 dishes at the particular sites. But if we went to a little bit bigger one, $150 antenna, we could double the speed. And that's what the existing setup that we're putting on the towers now. So plenty of bandwidth. Fire Station 3 is not even moving the needle anymore when they were saturated 24/7.
You indicated Fire Station 3, I think, went up to 400, but the Public Works to 15. Is that the difference there in that speed?
It's a difference in the antenna type.
The antennas, okay.
Right.
So
So this green connection right here is a $3,000 worth of hardware, and this orange connection type is $300
Okay.
in hardware.
So if the need came, as you just talked about, you could increase the
all you do
speed.
is you climb on the building and you switch out a little thing.
So
and
call
you're done.
the airport manager and he'll
No.
take care of it for you, huh?
We're the skated guys and us are doing most of the building work. It's on top of the water towers where we're overbuilding, so we don't have to get up there very often.
Does weather interfere with this?
The
and I'm
only-
not talking about being covered by snow.
The only weather interference
High
we had was
wind,
the snow
lightning,
event.
okay.
I've watched it when we've had straight line winds of 65, 70 miles per hour, no effect at all. So the two antennas are very tuned to each other. They're a matched pair. So the antennas have to stay in tune, but they know what they're doing and they showed us how to mount them properly. And so they're mounted very firmly. They don't move around even if the wind's moving or whatever. And they can tolerate a little bit of movement, because if you think about something that's up 150 feet in the air, there's going to be movement no matter what. So they can tolerate that little bit of movement, but they don't swivel or anything. They don't lose that connection. So over our tests, and we've been up since October the 4th, I think, with our first connection. We're 99.98% uptime. So.
And that's October of last year,
That's
17?
October of last year. So this isn't new for us. I mean, we've been doing it for a little while. We wanted to make sure it was thoroughly tested before we started disconnecting all the Cox connections. You know, we need it to work. And our, you know, if you go back to my productivity statement, you know, the whole point of IT is to make us more productive. And if I put up a terrible network, that's not going to make people more productive. That's just going to make downtime. We're also building a crash kit in case something does go wrong somewhere, somebody, you know, something breaks off or whatever, where we can actually bring it in and they would be over LTE until we had the opportunity to repair it. So we're looking at all of those kind of backup contingencies. So it's also given us the ability to do something that's really cool is disaster recovery. Say a tornado came through this part of town and took out the IT building, took out the fire resource center, we would still have our data, which is stored in the fire resource or IT right now, but soon in the fire resource center. We moved all of our data to other sites, so Public Works now has a copy of that data. So it'd have to be a heck of a tornado to get both of those buildings, and we're also going to move a copy of it down to up north to a water tower. So tornadoes rarely take out water towers. So if we put all of our data in there, then we're protected for disaster recovery very well. And it doesn't take very long to move that data at the connection speeds that we're talking about.
Any other questions, comments?
Nope.
Sorry I took so long.
Fascinating.
No, it is fascinating.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm gonna change things around here a little bit because you've got more presentations and there's a bunch of fine people who didn't want to hear about what I do. So we'll get them set up real quick.
And John, I wanted to comment. I've commented to you personally, but just kind of publicly. I appreciate the opportunity to hear department heads, get an update.
I know.
So I know that's something that you began, and I know you plan on continuing it and want to support that. Thank you.
I'm anxious for our first IT emergency to watch Todd slide down the pole.
Yeah,
Deal
over
with
there, okay.
There'll be a camera to televise that, won't there?
So the fire department told me they were going to take the poles.
Okay.
Take the poles.
So we won't have that opportunity. Sorry.
Maybe we can find a pole in the budget or something. I don't know.
Too bad.
Okay. Linda, next item.
Item 4C, oral communications from the audience.
Okay, this is that time where there's the opportunity for members of the audience to address the council about matters that are not already on the agenda. And we would ask that you limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. And I think we'll have to give Todd just a minute to wrap up so that you can come to the podium when he's
We can,
No,
we
that's
can
okay.
do this from the back.
Okay.
Thanks again, Todd.
Sir, I think I saw someone raise their hand.
Yeah.
Did you want to address us?
Morning.
Morning.
Good
Morning.
My name's Arthur Anderson, Andy, if you will. I live at 424 Cary Street, Southeast District, I believe. I'm just here today, gentlemen and lady. There's a lot of disconnect in the community. On Hutch Gossip, the webpage, the Facebook page, the citizens are just really, when we see things that are happening coming out of the city council, be it bike paths, be it art, things like that, there's a real disconnect because we're looking at, on our side, we're looking at potholes and things like that. And we're just like, the general, I guess, attitude is, what are these people thinking? Why are we not getting streets fixed instead of bike paths? And I think part of my solution to that is if we can get the council to reach out to us a little bit. I mean, you guys were elected, and we'd like to see you guys reach out to us. Mr. DeChant, I guess you're my district.
Yes.
And to be honest with you, sir, until 2 weeks ago, I didn't know who the heck you were. I did a thing on the Gossip, the webpage, and I asked him, I said, quick, without looking, name your city councilman and name the mayor. And everybody's like, we don't know. They went to the website and looked, and that info was off. That's since been corrected. So I want you guys to, and ladies, to make some sort of connection with us if you could. The meeting times are kind of inconvenient to people. I understand y'all have agendas and everything, but if there's 2 meetings a month, could one be a nighttime meeting maybe? I mean, you've got working folks that can't be here at 9 o'clock in the morning to be in a meeting and make our voice heard. I wish there was a Schoolhouse Rocks version of the city council so we could all know how it works. But I think if there was a connection with y'all to us, a couple ideas, or maybe get with your district and say, hey, why don't we meet at Metropolitan Cafe just for let's have a chit chat, a casual chit chat, not to go in there and start beating on y'all, but just to, hey, what's the problems? What do you guys need? I think more advertising about the meeting. I know it's not a thing, but people really don't know when the meetings are unless they go to the website. A lot of people don't go to the website. A lot of people don't research this. We need an easier connectability between the council and the citizens is what I'm looking for. I mean, even in the newspaper things to do, the meeting could be in there. I guess that's pretty much what I got. We need you guys to connect. Again, I don't know how often you get out through the district, when you're driving around. Every day when I'm going somewhere, I'm just frustrated because of potholes and poor road conditions, especially over in my district. And it seems that there's almost a dividing line, and it is perceived that, there's this side of Hutch and there's this side of Hutch. And the money goes here and no money goes here. And there's definitely that perceived notion out there with the people. So I just wanted to bring it to y'all's attention and see if you guys could make some sort of accommodations to come to us, to come see us, come visit us. So I'm sure we got some pretty good ideas, just even on the Facebook page. People got some pretty good ideas of things that wouldn't cost the city a lot of money, I wouldn't think, but it would show us something. I think if you guys connected and we connected and everybody started playing nicely and we got things done, that's going to put more pride in the city of Hutch. We talk about the rundown houses and things like that. Well, if your street's cruddy, do you really want to fix your house up? But if we encourage people to take care of their property and gave them some help instead of just going, this is crap, you got to move it. If we help the people and work with the people, there's going to be more pride in the community. And I think that is really going to help the city of Hutch instead of that perceived dividing line. That's about all I got to say. I could go on for hours, but I'll shut up.
Hey, real quick, Andy, the Facebook page, is it called Hutch Gossip?
Yeah, Gossip
Okay.
Hutch.
I know there's various
Yes, sir.
media or whatever, but that one I hadn't heard of.
Yes,
so
sir.
I'll
And I'm bringing one up online this week.
Okay.
And it's the tentative name is Hutch Citizens for Common Sense.
Okay. And for myself, I know I'm the at-large, so my district is the whole shooting match, so to speak. I'm with you. I mean, I embrace other people's contributions, thoughts, different ways of looking at things. So I would encourage anybody to reach out to me via email is the
Yes, sir.
easiest for myself. With regards to knowing who the councils are and all that stuff, it is kind of sad, but you can tell by the voter turnout for the various elections that not a lot of people even saw the ballots, so they wouldn't even know who it was.
Yes, sir. And the elections also. I mean, people don't really know. I intend to run for council myself.
Oh, yeah.
It took me a month of Sundays to figure out just how to get an application and when and when
where.
the terms were and when terms were up. I mean, it was a lot of footwork.
Right.
Which a lot of people won't do. They want to make changes, but they don't know how to get there.
Sure. And I think some of that may or may not be available on the city website, or if you're not web savvy, you can
Correct.
call the city as well. But
Yes, sir.
Less obstacles
Yes, sir.
to do that thing is
And
always
with
better.
the intent of my page is going to be to embrace the people and see what we can get going and see how we can work with y'all.
Right.
It's what I'd like to do. One suggestion is maybe, Mr. Chan, maybe an event this spring at Grandview Park. If you could set up out there and just, we could see about throwing some burgers together or just, ice cream social or something. I would encourage that, because Grandview seems to be kind of the overlooked park. It's got a little bit of a reputation over there, but I think if we started something like that, I think that would help out a lot.
Communication's always
Yes, sir.
key.
Yeah,
You're absolutely
that's
right.
my big thing is we just gotta, we gotta reconnect.
Yeah.
Andy, I think you've hit on some really legitimate things this morning. I really do. Perception is reality in so many minds. These meetings are very structured. That's the way form of government supposedly is created, and that's kind of a tradition that the city council operates under. And so, it is that we're not the enemy.
Right.
At all. But communication, reaching out, I think is a valid point in your thoughts, and would embrace that. And I think we're all here for the right reasons. None of us have any special agendas. I think we're looking out for the total well-being of the total city. And we've got district representatives and so on. But I've been on 5 years now, and I've never really particularly seen any leaning toward supporting one district over another. I think it's for the total city, but I get what you're saying. So I'm not sure where to go from here, but communication is the key. Absolutely, yeah.
I think appropriately we could sum it up with the end of Wizard of Oz. Let us look behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Andy, would you do me a favor? Would you leave your phone number with the clerk?
Yes, sir.
So I can
Absolutely.
get back in touch with you. And,
Yes, sir.
and want to thank you for your comments.
Yeah.
And
Thanks for coming down.
Yes, sir. Thank you all for your
Councilmember Dave
time.
did a good job of summarizing. Thank
Alrighty.
you.
Appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you, Andy. You bet.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the council?
Morning, Mayor and Council. I'm Merrill Dye, the Assistant City Manager. Just wanted to point out to you folks and to others in the audience, and also viewing through Channel 7, that the Hutchinson Human Relations Commission has partnered with the Hutchinson Community College, the Hutchinson NAACP, Hutch in Harmony, and Parson and Pope radio show to bring the second meeting in the series of community conversations on race. This conversation will take place on Tuesday, February 27th at 6:30 to 8 o'clock p.m. in the Justice Theater on the HCC campus in the Shears Technology Center, and the meeting is open to the public. Community Conversations brings diverse people together for an open dialogue on racial issues and problems. Our Master of Ceremony will be Dr. Hintz Parson, who will make opening and closing remarks, and then we will have a panel discussion moderated by Pastor Jeff Slater of First United Methodist Church. Panel members will include Cynthia Flores, who works with our Hispanic community, offering various services, Amina Elliman, and I'm probably bungled her name. She is with the Muslim Student Society at Wichita State University. Reno County Sheriff Randy Henderson, Bishop Jeanette James of Open Door Church in Wichita, high school student, a junior at the high school, DeMarcus Meyer, Daryl Pope of the Hutchinson NAACP, Reverend Amy Slater of the First United Methodist Church, and Esmeralda Tovar, a DACA recipient. And then following the panel discussion, audience members will be invited to ask questions and make comments. So again, we ask that you carve it into your calendar, bring a friend, and look forward to a lively and important discussion about race relations. Thank you.
I think you're right about
you.
important, Merrill. And I remember the last opportunity, and I thought that went well. And I think the modifications that this group has made in terms of format should help facilitate that. So
Yes.
thank you as well.
We thought the first meeting went very well as also, but probably spent a little too much time on introduction. So in follow-up to that, we just want to take a deeper dive into those issues. And I think that will happen with this panel and audience discussion. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to address the council? Okay, Linda, next item.
Item 5, consent agenda.
I will move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Been a motion, a second. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Dave Line?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Inskeep?
Yes.
Deckent?
Yes. Next item.
Item 6A, consider course of action for structures determined to be unsafe and dangerous.
More. Oh, yeah.
Hotter off the press? Okay.
Good morning, Council. Trent Maxwell, building official for the city. Give you a little background. We met January 16th, and these properties that we're going to discuss today, all the properties were given 30 days to rehabilitate or remove the structure from the property. So today is an update on any status changes, and then to discuss how to move forward either through condemnation or through rehabilitation. So the ones that I put on the first part of my presentation are the ones that have presented a plan and have made some sort of a change. I have had some that have come in to this morning that will be kind of later in the project or later in the presentation that there are no updates that I'm aware of. So that's the explanation behind how I'm presenting them to you guys. So this is what it looked like before for 220 West 6th. And this is what it looked like yesterday. So the front balcony, which you see there, had a lot of structural failures. He has removed it. There's still a lot of structural items and problems with this area. I visited with them on that. Some of the floor joists are just rotted. They need to be replaced. The support for the floor joist has since been removed. So temporarily there's 4 or so bricks holding that up. I discussed it with the owner. He is here, so he'll speak on his behalf as far as his time frame. He did submit one of the ones this morning. He'll be able to explain a little bit more detailed what his plan and time frame and maybe cost are associated with his project.
There's not yet a building permit on that property, Paul, that you know of?
Correct. Yep. 28 East Bigger. This is what it looked like before. So this one, and she's been in and talked before with you guys. Last time she had the roof started. The roof is pretty complete. Looks like a little bit of paint. She has some siding yet to do and some other things on the outside. This is what it looked like before from the east view. And this is what it looked like yesterday. So she's making good progress. She still has a ways to go, and she also had a plan submitted this morning. 753 East F, and on your on the presentation or on your background, whether they have permits or not, that was at the time it was created. To my knowledge, no one came in yesterday and pulled a permit that I'm aware of, so that should all be current. This, the exterior, some of the things they've done some cleanup on. I don't know of a whole lot as far as any structural items. Other than on this property, they did demolish, and I'll get to that here. This little shed on the back that was connected to a larger garage or shed has been removed completely. That's the progress that I know, other than maybe a little bit of tree removal with 753 East F. He did have a time frame that he submitted to you. There has no building permit has been pulled on this one either.
You said the time frame has been submitted?
It has. The time before, his was a 6-month,
Okay.
but you know, of
6
course,
month.
today we're going to discuss a little different time frame, and then they can speak on their behalf and voice their thoughts to you guys.
Yeah.
So this is the update showing that shed. If you look at the only building there to the left side of that photo is where that shed was, and it's gone. 763 East F. This is what it looked like before. This is the update. A lot of cleanup on the outside. I believe they hauled some of the items on the inside. There was a lot of trees that grew up around the foundation. I'll show you another photo here. So they've cut a lot of those back. They're looks like working on that actively. And they're here too to speak on any specific items you may have for them. This is also just a before photo, and that's another before photo. So all those trees and little bushes and stuff have been removed, cleaned it up. 715 West First. This gentleman's made really good progress. He's got a lot more still to do. I don't know if he is. I do not see him here today. So on the outside, this is the update. I also cleaned up a lot of the brush and bushes. The inside was full of items. They have since all been removed. He does have a licensed electrician and plumber. And I think he found out last time when we did our walkthrough, he has to have a licensed mechanical company, and he has one picked out. This is the other view. That plywood is just over a door that's not secure for a little back porch or patio. So he's got some roofing to do. This was a photo from before. I didn't have one from the back. So on the back part of his property, he has some miscellaneous tree limbs, debris from the inside that he pulled out that he just needs to get hauled off. So he has made really good progress, but he's got a ways to go yet. This next house is one that is a demolition permit has been issued. The property owner's doing it themselves. This is the before photos, and this is what it looked like yesterday. So on my recommendation for these properties that we've discussed on the demolition is to extend it 30 more days to allow them to finish their demolition themselves. The other properties that we've currently viewed wish to give a 3-month extension for them to continue to work on their rehabilitation of the properties. Now there's 2 changes that this morning that would cause the motion or my recommendation to change, and for you guys to discuss and see how you feel about it. Yesterday, before I left work, 1210 North Forest contacted me. They did
1210 what?
1210 North Forest.
1210.
And I can get to that slide. It might be even.
That's
It's
the
this
one
one
that
here.
was bought like at auction.
It was bought a couple of years ago on an auction. They have sold it. I don't know if the new owner is here. I recommended that they come to express their time frame, their plans. I've talked to different contractors that were looking at it. I walked through the house with one of the contractors. It is gutted, so if someone has the financial means to put the electrical, the plumbing, and stuff like that, heating in it, there's no sheetrock on the walls. It's very accessible to do that. So that is one that my motion or recommendation was different because I had not heard of any definitive change with the property.
So what's your recommendation now?
If the owner is here, I'd wait to see kind of what their proposal is. If they feel they've got the desire to change it, which I assume they do, and that's why they bought the property, to put them in that lump sum of the 3 months, or if you change that at all. But my recommendation would be 3 months. The other property, which as of late, so it's not even in my next presentation, it would be down the road, and that's 324 West 6th. The owner is in the audience. And
324 or 326? We've got something labeled 326.
324. 324.
It is 324, okay. And that's what, one of the sheets that you handed out?
324
Yes.
West 6th.
Okay.
Yep, that's a double-sided front and back.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as much as what you, if you've had any time to even look at it, is as much as I know about it. But he can explain and elaborate on his plan. But I didn't have his in the presentation up front because I wasn't aware that he was going to submit a plan until just now, so a few minutes ago.
That one's also in the third grouping, and we'll listen.
The 3 month.
Yeah.
Correct, yes, that would be the other one that I would propose, since I have the desire to put in that, and again, you know.
Depending on what we hear.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So as far as that goes, that's the end of my presentation. If there's any specific property you want to look at, I do have all the original photos, but nothing has changed in them. But if a property owner steps up and wants to discuss their property, I can pull those back up for you. And just to go through the motion, so as we discuss, if you have any more questions, my first motion is for the demolition to extend 30 days on 20 North Pershing. The second motion is the extension of time given to properties for 3 months, and whether or not the last 2 properties we discussed, you group into that. And then the last motion is to seek bids for the remaining properties. And so we might have to finesse my addresses a little bit, but that's all I have, unless you guys have questions specifically for me on this.
Questions of Trent?
Not at the moment. Mayor, I would, maybe if I can move this along, I would move, or if you'll entertain, my motion to approve a 30-day extension to complete the demolition of 20 North Pershing Street. That one seems pretty obvious to me.
I'll second that.
Been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the demolition of, or the 30-day extension on North Pershing? If not, Linda, would you call roll, please?
Daveline?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Inskeep?
Yes.
Decken?
Yes. Are there any other motions at this point? Well, I'd like, if
go ahead.
not, I'd like to do is just the list that we have and go down, I think, in the same order that Trent presented to us. And offer property owners, if they're here, to address us. That works for you guys. Is the owner of 220 West 6th here, and do you wish to speak to us? Good morning. Your name,
Morning.
Your name, sir?
I'm Brad Burnett.
Okay, Brad. Excuse me. We do have a copy that Mr. Maxwell presented to us. What do you want to tell us, say, or ask?
I don't know what questions you
Well, it looks
Have
as
you
though
had
you've
some
been busy.
conversation with Mr. Maxwell over the last
Yes.
30 days or so? Okay. I don't,
Are you confident you're going to be able to rehabilitate the house within this 3-month extension?
Well, I do quite a bit of work to it. I'm going to finish the porch, get the siding on there, and I should have electric in there, electrical fixed. Then I need to get the juice going over there. It's got a brand new weather head on the back and all kinds of stuff.
so you brought it to the house?
No,
Electric.
it's been on there. I put one on it a while back.
Some time ago, okay. Have you, you'll need a permits for some of this,
Yes.
for a fair amount of this. Have you pulled any permits yet?
No, I gotta, see, I just was getting that tore down in that last month, you know, couldn't get a whole lot done in a month. But, you know, if it was more decent weather, could have.
Well, sure.
Sure.
You're doing the majority of the work yourself, or do you have a crew, or?
Actually, you guys had the estimates for the roof. It's gonna take a little while from watertight roofing. And, Hearst, home improvement on some of the siding and porch and stuff.
Brad, you're confident that you can complete this work, both in terms of the labor that you'll put into it, or the time, as well as the financial commitment that
Yes,
would be necessary for this?
yes.
Okay.
All right. Well, I would urge you. Go
my
ahead.
Doctor built that house, and his daughter lived there till she died in 1988. Anyway, my aunt took dance lessons there. She's 80 years old, all kinds of stuff. You know, so the house means a lot.
Sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I would urge you to get the permit process going. It's good that you've made some progress with the tear off the structure that was unsafe, or the part of the structure was unsafe. And I know there's only so much you can get done yourself, but certainly to get those permits going so that you can get some contractors that you're intending to work with going on that project to make even
Yes, sir. I
a lot
need
more
to,
progress.
actually, I need to get some electric going first so I can,
Okay.
move it around, move it quicker.
All right.
Okay.
Very good.
All right.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Do appreciate it.
So question to you, Trent. Those that may get approved today for the a 3-month extension. At the expiration of that 3 months, then you go out and physically inspect those yourself? How does
Yes,
that happen?
if not throughout the process, hopefully if they're doing work consistently, that we're there more than just an update for you guys.
Okay.
But yeah, worst case scenario, after 3 months, before we come back to meet again, I'll have another update and I'll go out there and inspect what I can to see if there's been changes, what changes have been made, and try to get some photos to show you their update.
Okay.
Does that then result in an occupancy permit, or am I wrong there?
Occupancy is once they're totally complete. Hopefully most of them, if not all of them, would be complete. I know their timeframes aren't 3 months.
Right.
And that's, I was concerned because then it turns into be 6, 9, a year, and so forth. And occupancy is at the end of it, when we know that someone can live in it.
Okay.
Typically on a building permit, we don't issue occupancies. On something like this, where it's through the condemnation, it'd probably be appropriate to issue one if they've gone through and finished everything, to have that certificate that they know that they can put people in there and live in it again.
Okay.
So we should be in there multiple times.
Multiple times,
On
I see.
Brad's house and most of them, there's electrical items, there's plumbing items, there's heating items, as well as structural roofing. So we should be there multiple times in the next 3 months.
I see.
On most of these
And that makes a
projects.
good point. You're there to view
Yeah.
the electrical work, but of course you're going to look around and see other progress and
Correct.
make your own notations. And okay, that makes sense.
Trent, you said something that reminded me. Mr. Burnett, and I'm looking at your construction plan for rehab of the house. If I'm looking at this right, you're expecting to complete the last item, which I think is the roof, September of this year. So you really, so 90 days won't be, you probably won't have this house fully completed in 90 days,
No.
correct? All right. But you're intending to have a heck of a lot completed.
You're
I
right.
understand. Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Owner of, is it 28?
28.
East Bigger.
Yeah. She's made lots of progress.
Love it.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name's Tina Rozier. I own 28 East Bigger.
You've made a lot of progress.
I'm trying.
You have.
I've got to finish doing the edge part around the roof. I can't think of what it's called. Fascia, I believe. Sorry, I'm learning as I'm
Yeah.
working on it. So the guys that were helping me had to go do actual work that they were getting paid for. So they kind of left and gave me instructions on how to do it, and I haven't went out to Home Depot and got the rest of the boards and finished doing it yet. But I plan on where the new boards are, where it shows the old boards, I plan on replacing all that with the new board also around the trim or fascia or whatever it's called. And then I had Mike Williams come in and look at my electrical from Kenny's Electric, and he said that it looked good to him and stuff. And I haven't had a plumber come in, but I didn't have any issues when we lived there. The plumbing was all functional and worked. Bath, shower, everything was good. And then I did have Jeff from Aladdin's Heating and Air come in, and he's going to be installing a central heat unit for me here soon. I think probably within the next couple weeks or month, something like that. We haven't really set an exact date, just kind of depending on his schedule because he's a busy guy. And the porch, Trent had wanted me to work on the porch, and I wasn't sure how to do it. And Jeff actually gave me some really good tips on how to fix the porch posts and what I needed to do to be able to do that myself. So.
Okay. Remind me your intentions. Are you going to live in the property?
Yeah, I'm going to live there.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
And I just found out that I think my daughter is going to move in with me because she just told me a couple of days ago that she's in the middle of a divorce, and her and my granddaughter are going to move in.
Okay. Well, that might speed the project.
Yeah.
One way or another.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that.
Kids are good for that.
Gotta love them.
Right.
Well, sounds like you're making some good progress. You've got at least one or more of your building permits pulled to do the work. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. 753 East Avenue F. Your name, sir?
My name is Michael Carter. I haven't got a lot of the stuff around the house picked up, but I've been working on like gathering resources and for the projects. And there was actually 2 structures attached to the garage that I removed. One was behind it; it's not shown in the picture. But I removed both structures, got rid of the debris from that. And the next thing I plan to start on is cleaning up the house itself and working on the house and getting on the inside and working on the interior, which should be concurrent with my plans that I gave you before. I have a 6-month plan. It's kind of time sensitive for resources and for manpower, which is why it was 6 months. So, like I said, right now I'm currently still gathering resources to get the projects done. I think the next thing I had on there was for the roof. And so that'll be the next project that I do, and I'll probably take down the trees and stuff while I'm at that.
So you expect to fully complete what needs to be done in a 6-month period?
Yeah, I'm going to redo the roof, I'm going to redo the siding, and I have a bunch of interior work that I'm doing. I don't think I have any electrical work or anything that needs to be done. That should all still be good.
You mentioned time sensitivity. You think if we were to allow for this 3-month extension, will we see marked progress?
Yeah, there
by
should be
3
marked
months?
progress. Yeah, I should have like the roof done, and like I said, it's on my plan. I don't have one present, so I can't remember what the dates were on it, but I'm pretty sure the next thing was the roof. The siding was towards the last of it, so the siding itself is one of the last things I'll be doing. I'm going to reframe the windows, reframe the doors, fix up the porch. So, I mean, I'll be doing exterior and interior work. I have not got my building permit yet, but I plan to get it soon.
And you're intending to reside there yourself?
Yes.
Other questions? Okay, thank you, sir. 763 East Avenue F.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hello.
Good morning.
John Koontz, 763.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting there. There was one thing Trent didn't show is when I got done, there were some boards that was back here by the steps that were rotted out. I got them all replaced. And you can see there, right below that door.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The back door.
Right.
Like you said, everything's been going pretty good, except like you guys said, inevitably always something happens.
Sure.
We got into it a week into it. Later, my son was in a bad car wreck in Oklahoma City, so that kind of slowed us down a little bit. But I mean, as you can see, we got quite a bit done, and I've got some work in the interior done, and I got the weatherhead. You can see it sticking up back by the dish, is sticking up for the electrical, going through with that, and I think we should be pretty good on the 3 months of getting it done. So.
Okay.
Even getting it done, you think?
Yeah.
Getting it done.
Well, good job on the good progress.
No problem.
And again, remind us, what you're planning living there, or it's for
No,
your
my daughter.
for your daughter?
Graduating high school.
That's right. That's right. Thank you. Okay.
That's a heck of a gift.
Yes. Do you guys have any questions for me, or?
Nope, we'll see you in 3 months when it's all done.
All right.
Keep up the good progress.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
715 West First. No one here, or no one that wants to? Okay, next one is, oh, that's it.
That's it, yeah.
That's the, that's right, there's been some good progress made on that, hasn't there? Okay.
Mayor, would you
That's
be interested in
763.
visiting about, was it 324 West 6th and 1210 North Forest, the ones that Trent suggested maybe we might entertain?
Why,
And I don't know if there's anybody here.
why don't we take care of, we've got recommendations from Trent on, what, 5 properties? 1, 2, 3. Why don't we deal with those and discuss those and do a motion on those and then talk about the additional 2?
Okay, if we can do a second motion, if we
Yeah.
want to include those in a 3-month extension or whatever, okay.
So
All right,
having said-
I would
go ahead.
move to approve 3-month extension to complete the rehabilitation of 220 West 6th, 28 East Bigger, 753 East Avenue F, 763 East Avenue F, and 715 West First Avenue.
Okay,
I will second.
motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Linda, call the roll, please.
Daveline,
Yes.
Soldner,
Yes.
Inskeep,
Yes.
Deckent.
Yes. Okay. Dave, do you want to kick off any conversation about 1210 and 324?
Again, I didn't know where it felt appropriate to put those in, but those are the two that Trent had mentioned that there's been some movement on. One, we received paperwork on a plan, and the other one traded hands. Is that sold?
Yes, 324, you received a plan this morning, and 1210 North Forest is under new ownership, and I have not met the new owner.
I guess I should have
We've-
offered that before.
We've
I
got
guess.
him here in the audience.
Is there an owner or representative for 1210 North Forest?
Perfect.
You folks? Okay, good.
Hi, I'm Candy, and my husband and I purchased the property at a sheriff's sale, not knowing it was condemned, and that's where we are today. We, within the last week, have signed a contract, and it is at the title company at this time with this gentleman here. He is going to purchase it. He hasn't had a chance to have any plan yet because he's still in the process of becoming the new owner. So I just ask that you give him as much time as possible so that he can make his plan and do the work that needs done.
Sir?
My name is Timothy Steinhauser.
Timothy?
And, yeah. We don't have any kind of official plan, but we do have a general plan of what we're doing with it. I'm remodeling and then going to live in it with
You're
my
gonna live in
friend
it?
Davey Smith. Yeah.
Okay, so you would reside in it with your, okay.
And you've not had a chance to have a conversation?
Within the last week, we just have signed the contract,
Okay.
so
Okay.
he hasn't had any time to.
Sure.
Timothy, assuming that we approve an extension, I urge you to rapidly have a conversation with Trent or whoever he directs you to in terms of having some conversation. Just to get that started off in that regards.
And being that you're new to the conversation, I would reiterate that the council looks favorably on a plan, progress, and things like that. So as you can put that together, much like the mayor urged, that would really help the cause.
There's a lot of furniture and appliances left that the seller wants to take. He was using it as storage, so he'll be taking those out. Once those are out, we plan to take down the carport, and then we can, the actual work shouldn't take less than a month.
Oh, wow.
But just because of acquiring finances.
Sure.
Is this the building that's gutted, or am I getting confused?
It's gutted,
This is the
yeah.
building that's gutted, so everything's open on the inside.
That actually, kind of lends itself to putting it back together.
Yeah. Me and the guy I'm fixing up with both have electrical and plumbing experience. We have a licensed master electrician who will be overseeing, and then I have a plumber I'm talking to about either doing or overseeing and approving any work that we do on it. And we both have considerable construction experience, so structural stuff we can just do on our own.
Do your own. Very good.
Okay.
Awesome.
Get your plan.
Anything else from the
Good to go.
council?
Not on that, no.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Owner or representative on 324 West 6th? We just got a plan this morning, right?
Yeah, you just got a plan this morning.
Your name, sir?
Jeff Mack. Jeff Mack, yeah, I just gave Trent a plan this morning. We met last week. You have a 30-day extension, but we had snow and ice last week, and we have it today too. In my plan there, you'll see that doing the worst part, the backside and the siding, I don't expect to have that done till September.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm just being realistic. All these other people, 3 months, well, that's good for them. But realistic for me, I'd like to get the thing fixed up on the outside by September. The inside, I'm not even worried about. This is a house that I was hoping to use to, when I get old and retired, I can take my little rascal down to Dillon's and stuff. But the inside, I think I got in there 2.5 years or so. Because the main concern is to get the backside all fixed up and where the garage is and stuff, and look presentable. But and I haven't done nothing. I haven't got any permits because I knew we was going to meet again today. And depending on what your outcome is, what my outcome is, if we get an extension and understand that it's going to take me more than 3 months, I'll be right down there and talk to Trent on permits and stuff. If you got any questions, hopefully can answer it. And I really don't expect any progress till we get into March or so, because we're still got the cold days before I start working outside.
But you think there'll be, you're not putting, I see some July items in September, which July, of course, is also beyond the 3 months, but you think there's certain things when the weather gets right.
Yeah, when the weather gets right, and also it's
we'll
not something, of course, with my business, I was out at 5 o'clock this morning to help a little lady with her furnace, so.
Oh, yeah.
And the ice, and if I'd known the ice was that bad, I would have said, well, wait a little bit.
Right.
But no, there's some houses that you guys have condemned before and I've worked with, and some of those are still, from 2 years ago, are still being touched up on the outside, so.
Right.
But I know the biggest part is he did have some people in there before that were not really reputable, and I know that made the neighborhood pretty mad with the people in there. But they're not in there anymore, and I just got to have some time to fix it up. Or, in this case, if you want to vote to destroy it, I think it's probably about, what, $9,000 it'll cost the city to destroy that house.
Right.
Because there's a lot of dumpsters in there. So.
Trent, can you remind us, what are the elements that brought this property to, brought you to bringing it to us for demolition consideration?
Yeah, a few things. We're very aware of the house. We've had multiple complaints about the house. This is the back of the house. The inside is completely trashed. The people that lived in it before left every bit of just literal trash everywhere. It's got plenty of exterior issues that allow for either birds, rodents, rain, etc. in. So when we look at homes, we look at, is it continuing to get damage to the inside? What's the condition of the exterior, the garage? He wants to save it. We'll have to visit that situation if that's the case, because there's structural issues with that. We want to make sure it wasn't built as we would build it per code, so we'd want to fix some of those items. So that's the main thing. You see the tarp. There's some roof problems there. I don't know if this shows the side of it. The addition kind of thing that was put up by the garage, just none of it was done quite right, and whoever was in it before didn't care or take care of it. We didn't take pictures of the inside, but Jeff can probably tell you, you're walking over piles and piles of trash that was left. Yep.
So this was a rental, I take it?
It was a couple houses I bought or got in trade from a job. I have this and some other houses, and one has since been destroyed from 2 years ago. Guy just didn't do anything with it, and I haven't done anything with it now, but now we have to start doing something with them.
Jeff, you identified in your plan probable cost of project $66,000.
I plan on doing a lot of it myself, but you guys want a plan, and you're going to have realistic numbers out there. If I hire somebody to do it, I'm going to start working on the inside stuff. Yeah, it's going to cost a lot, but hopefully I can do most of the stuff myself.
So your expectations would not necessarily
mean
spending $66,000?
No.
No.
But if something would happen, unforeseen, then I would have to hire some of that stuff done.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And that's probably not very realistic or very smart on your part to invest that amount of money.
Kind of why we're here today.
Yeah.
I need to get assurances from the council that, hey, we can go, because I'm telling you up front, it's going to take longer than 3 months.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I know Trent will work with me on the stuff. Work with other people that are less nice.
Yeah. Trent, another question for you. How far will he need to take this structure until you'd be willing to back off of pursuing demolition?
Well, every year has been slightly different with the cases that have come to you or the properties. In years past, if you're comparing his to those, they've been large homes that would take considerable amount of investment. The property owners came and expressed to you their plans with them. At the end of those decisions with those properties, it was that the outside would get complete. The inside, we'd work through a building permit process with them to get them livable again. Some of those have worked out pretty good. Some of them, as Jeff has alluded to, are still, 10 yards short of finish. So in my opinion, it's same with years past. Yeah, I want every house livable, but it is a significant investment. To keep it from me wanting to demolish it, I want it weather tight. I want the outside complete so our complaints don't happen. The worst thing is getting a complaint and not having a good answer of why it's not either being demolished or fixed. So I want the exterior completely done so those go away. By having the exterior done, there's no more damage happening to the house. We want the inside cleaned out so we're not dealing with any kind of mold or rats or birds or anything like that in there. And then I think we could move forward with building permits on the interior, but the exterior is the biggest thing. We want structurally safe, weather tight, and sound and presentable. So,
Hearing that, Jeff, what kind of time do you think it's going to take you to complete the elements that Trent just talked about?
Well, the back part I would figured about July in there, and then of course the rest of the house on the outside sometime in September. But July realistically is where the worst part is, and of course, one thing we talked about was foundation for the garage. As Trent said, that was not really put up properly, and that would be somewhere, after September or something, because I want to get it sealed up first, and then concentrate on the footing later.
And when do you anticipate just getting the trash out of the interior?
It's not even an issue for me. What it is the people was in there, went to dumpsters and brought in this and brought in that, and brought in nicky knack things. And as long as I have a path through there, I'm not even worried about the trash in the dumpster. It's out of sight. Hopefully, no complaints. But I have to, because of my time being short, I want to concentrate on the outside. And that's just being realistic. It's not going to happen in 3 months. The outside and all the trash.
So 6 months, 9 months, 12 months?
I think I had 2.5 years.
Well, I wasn't talking about finishing it and making it livable, getting the trash out.
Well, the outside would be, hopefully by September, fair time I'd have it presentable. It'd be like a regular house on the outside, but just trying to be realistic.
Well, and I was going to say on the plan here, there's 3 items, 1, 2, 3, what was it, roof siding, windows that were marked as July.
That's the back part of the house where some of the studs are, in one part, some of the studs are exposed, or some of the siding are peeled off.
So is the reality to incorporate this, if we were to allow the extension, just 3 months, or to consider something beyond that?
Well,
in all reality.
Well, you got to be fair to everybody. I'm sure you're going to be 3 months, and then in 3 months I'll be up here again, and hopefully Trent will show you a different picture.
Well, that's what I was hoping too.
Yeah.
Right. Will there be something in 3 months that you can show to us? You think, anyways?
I would hope so.
I would hope so too.
Because I kind of got my heart set on taking little rascal down to Dillon's when they retire.
There it is.
So it's a close house, but that's like I said, realistically, it's going to take some time.
That's all I
Okay.
had.
Trent, I'd be curious, what's your, you've heard Jeff's comments and I guess in both of those properties, and of course the comments from the folks who are buying and selling 1210. What would you recommend to us?
On the 1210, both of them I would do your 3 months. It sounds like you guys are open to giving them a chance. I think the 1210 is going to go quicker. He mentioned a month, and it's a much smaller home, and it is all open. There's really nothing in it. The appliances and stuff are minimal. I'm sure Candy can get that taken care of, rather quickly, so he can get started. On Jeff's situation, yes, 3 months won't be enough time. I think as we were discussing the interior, definitely by the time we remove it from the condemnation list, if all the exterior is done, I do want that inside cleaned out because it is disgusting. I mean, not to...
He's seen it.
It's bad.
It's bad.
And so it might not be the most important thing for him to do because he wants to get the outside taken care of, and that's great. But definitely before, if we extend this out till September, after showing progress reports, that inside needs to be part of that and not be left. Otherwise, it's just continue to have problems. You learn things after you start peeling away some of the stuff that's inside, and that will give Jeff a good idea and a good picture of, what we'll have to do later, so.
Yeah, and I don't want a breeding ground.
Right, yeah.
For
Nor do the
other
neighbors,
things.
and
Yeah.
they don't want a pest situation or anything.
Rodents.
If you could give him some guidance as well, because you know what we're looking for also, progress. Maybe some low-hanging fruit that he could work on to help give us a little assurances that in that 3-month window or whatever.
On the back of that paper, I think I stressed, I realized the importance of the outside because of the feral cats and everything
Yeah.
else.
We
Seal
did
it.
outside perimeter settlement first.
Okay.
If you got anything else, I'll just sit down. Okay, thank you.
I think so.
Please do. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Okay, so do we want a motion?
I'm ready for one.
Okay, I will move that we grant a 3-month extension to 1210 North Forest Street and 326 West 6th.
I think it's 324, am I
Is it
correct?
324?
Okay, it
yeah,
says
right.
326
Yeah,
on the
right.
paper.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a
Second.
Any discussion?
Just for clarification, then Trent, you would be bringing back in 3 months a status report on the previous ones plus these here
Plus these
with
two.
photographs
All
and
of-
so on?
Correct.
And your recommendations?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, very good.
Okay.
Nothing else? Linda, call roll, please.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Let's take a
Do we,
5.
we have one more
Oh,
motion.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, still got the.
And then this
What am I doing?
motion
Last
needs to be
grouping.
edited for those two
Oh, I'm
properties.
sorry.
pulled off.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so yeah, we've removed those two, and this is a motion to consider solicitation of bids. Okay, so these are ones.
And this would be less,
1210 and 324.
And 324.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you recognize if anybody's here from these properties on this?
No.
I guess we could ask.
Okay, I will move to approve the solicitation of bids through central purchasing to demolish the structures listed in the motion as presented.
Except,
less 1210
Less
North
1210
Forest,
and
324 West 6th.
324,
Okay.
yeah, okay.
I would second that.
Any further discussion? Linda, call roll, please.
Yes?
Yes.
Deckent?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Inskeep
Yes.
and Deckent.
And yes. And are we finished with everything, Trent, with you? Okay, I was jumping the gun. Let's take 5 to 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okey-dokey. Ay, ay, ay.
Let's reconvene. Linda, if you'd call the next item, please.
Item 6B, consider closeout of 2014 moderate income housing grant.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council. Janet McCarron, Director of Planning and Development. And this is a happy item for us all here. We're here to request approving closeout of the 2014 Moderate Income Housing Grant, and this was for the townhomes at Santa Fe Place project. That grant was for the total of $225,000. It was granted by the Kansas Housing Resource Corporation, but as you guys probably recall, the city was the recipient, and then it was passed through to New Beginnings. As part of that grant, 10 multifamily units were built, and it was a $1.2 million plus investment in our neighborhood revitalization plan area. I'll slow down a little here. Just a little history on the project. The site was actually identified before I began work here in 2012. In January 2013, vacant houses on the property were demolished, and that was under a different grant program, the Neighborhood Stabilization Grant. In April 2013, Phase 1, the original couple of townhouses there, construction began. In January 2014, that was completed. And then in December of 2014, the Moderate Income Housing Grant was awarded. And progress continued, the development began, construction was completed in December 2017. So they just recently completed construction. And here's a couple of photos of the project, the outside. This is across from Dillon's on West 5th. If you guys get the chance to go over there, it's really very nice. And then interior shot, very nice. Most of these have granite countertops and very nice finishes. And here with us today, we have Shara Gonzalez and Dan Link with New Beginnings, and I think they'd like to address the council, if that would be okay.
Certainly.
Yep.
Shara?
Shara Gonzalez, Executive Director for New Beginnings, Inc. Basically, this has been a long, drawn-out process from 2012 to now, but partnering with the city has been wonderful in the sense that taking that piece of properties, those many properties, because it was the city who negotiated the vacant lots and so on, and made a piece of ground that we could actually build upon. We're really proud of what's happened, but if you look at what this can do, I think this is the bigger picture and probably is the point of the Moderate Income Housing Grant. Not only is it to provide workforce housing, but I think it's to help on a larger scale create change in neighborhoods. So you can do it one house at a time, and you can do it by doing what we did, which is called a pocket neighborhood. But along on 5th Street, which is an entrance into our community, that project covers 1.25 acres. Unfortunately, the heating and air conditioning building next to his business had a fire, so they rebuilt, so that is rebuilt. And then going on down west on 5th Street, Mark Borski, who was the contractor on this project, had bought the old Ineta building and has turned that into their offices and has consistently been buying houses along 5th Street and fixing them up. So you're actually getting several blocks of redevelopment happening in an area that was blighted at one time. The last house that came down, the police were there on a continual basis with break-ins, drug activity, etc. We are in the leasing project. We were 3 months behind on this project for a lot of various things that happened between the contractor. Our larger work families had some tragedies happen, so it kind of put us into leasing up in the winter time, which is not always the best thing to do. But so far we have
4 people, 4 families who have moved in, and we are working on the rest of the leasing. There's a little bit of money left out of this grant that we're holding as lease-up reserve, and because we will do major landscaping come spring. We couldn't do it because of the weather. We'll do landscaping in that large piece that you see that's on 5th Street that doesn't have housing on it, is scheduled to be a children's naturescape play area, which Dan's working with Jim Smith from Dillon Nature Center to turn into a play area, and then also a dog park area because we allow pets there as well. We want to thank you for working closely with us and making this a success.
Well, it is good seeing this come to fruition and completion, or very near completion.
Yes.
And it is a good project, and those are good looking. I had the opportunity when you had the open house to take a look at least one of the each of the different kind of units, and those are nice units. So, congratulations and well done in that regard. And it is good, as you pointed out, to see the broadening or the broader improvement along
in
5th
that
Street
whole
as well.
area. And then Dillon stores were appreciative enough that the wrought iron fence that we put around the whole project to fence it in was not part of the original pro forma and the original construction bid. So we had to go in and raise money, and some of that came from Kroger Foundation and Dillon employees because it helps their property as well.
Good.
Thank you.
Chair, I'd just like to say as well, I don't know if you intend to write a book about this project because it's got multiple chapters in it, obviously.
It does.
And I do recall when you initially came before the city council back 4 or 5 years ago on this project, and the struggles and the challenges that you had, and you overcame each of them. And I just want to congratulate you and Dan and your board of directors for having the vision to fulfill this project. It's just a wonderful addition to the community. So, well done.
I thank you. I know someone said to me, this is the first project that I developed without using a for-profit developer, that we did ourselves. And they said, why did you choose such a difficult project to be the first one? I didn't know it was going to be at the time, but we've learned a lot. And I think the state, don't you think? And Fred Bentley came through and was very pleased as well. So thank you.
Yeah, no, they are very, very nice. So.
Yes, Fred did tour, and I got the chance to talk to him, and he said this is exactly the kind of project that this grant was meant for. And I think we could probably anticipate, if the city does more of these kinds of things in partnership, that we would be successful in getting additional grant funding from the state.
Good.
Okay.
So, but today we're just looking to close out the grant from the state, and thank you guys for your attention. If you have any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them.
It's just good that we're at an end. And, okay, is there a motion?
I would move to approve the final account of funds for the 2014 Moderate Income Housing Grant and authorize the mayor to sign the contract, the grant closeout documents.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Linda, would you call roll, please?
Dave Line?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Inskeep?
Yes.
Deckent?
Yes. Next item.
Item 6C, consider residential infill study implementation plan.
Oh, good morning again. Janet McCarron again. Anyway, this item is actually a follow-up item to something that the City Council asked us to do a couple of years ago, and that was to do an infill study of areas basically south of 11th Avenue to see what we could maybe do as far as our regulations and innovative housing types to see some turnaround. And I think the project that we just saw is an example of what can happen. And so just a little time background for you all. In August 2016, the city commissioned a study with KU, College of Architecture. You guys will remember they came and presented, and they had very wonderful graphics, and had put a lot of thought into some of the things that we could maybe see in the areas, particularly in our neighborhood revitalization plan area. The the scope of work was a little bit beyond them to actually make recommendations and how we would make changes to our code. But then our staff was commissioned with the task of, okay, take what the students did and figure out how could we make this happen given the lots that we have and the properties that we have. And so we began that work in April, and from May to November did an in-depth analysis. And when I say we, I mean Amy and Aaron, and I asked them both to come today because I think they did a really good job.
Yes, they did.
Yes,
I've
they
been
did.
in this business a long time, and I think this could stand up to any I've seen. So they went through our codes, they went through the issues, and had a steering committee set up to kind of also review the codes and some of the recommendations. And we also took these recommendations to each of 3 boards to, 3? Oh, they're listed on the next slide. No, they're not listed on this. 5 boards? Well, we took them to the Land Bank, Housing Commission, Planning Commission, DRC, and our steering committee. So 5 different boards have reviewed this. And then we thought, we probably ought to bring it to you all, because what we're going to ask at the end is, can we go ahead and move forward with creating a new zoning district? And so why a new zoning district? Really, we have 2 primary residential zones that allow for single-family development. One is R3, which is large lot, greater than 9,000 square feet. And we also have R4, which is also a large lot, and it's basically greater than 9,000 square feet. The only difference between the 2 is one allows for duplexes and the other doesn't. But R3 and R4 are pretty much sprinkled throughout town. There's more R4s in the south and more R3 in the north, but you'll find areas of R4 up north, and I don't know if you'll find any areas of R3, few down south. So really, we couldn't take one of those zoning districts and say, okay, this is going to be this new zone, because we would have had to rezone a whole lot of other properties as well. And really the whole impetus of this, I'm going to get to in a second here, is we have lots that were platted a long time ago. Many of these 100 years ago or more, and they were platted to be between 35 and 50 feet wide. Some of them are even 25 feet wide. Well, you can't put a suburban house on a lot like that. A wide house, a ranch with the big garage. And so, unfortunately, our zoning regulations have 5-foot setbacks and a minimum lot width of 60 feet, I think it is. And those lots didn't even fit that. So what that put many of these lots into nonconformance, and they couldn't expand, they couldn't add on, they couldn't put something new there if we tore something down. We needed to find a way to help facilitate, or at least move out of the way of redevelopment in the southern part of town. So I have slides for all the issues, and I know this was in your packet, so I don't know if you want me to go through each one, or just kind of give me the nod if you want me to go a little faster. But the first issue that we faced when looking at how come these areas aren't redeveloping is that our setbacks are 5 feet from the front and side, or from the sides, 25 feet from the front and 15 feet from the rear. Well, this diagram shows an actual lot with an actual building on it on one of our numbered streets. We're not going to expose which one it was, but you can see that the building's already built past that 5 feet. So if you were to want to add on, you couldn't. And I think Commissioner Deckens already heard this because he was at the Housing Commission, we presented it. But anyway, our recommendation then is to kind of reduce that setback on the sides to 3 feet, and on the front to 15 feet, and on the rear to 10 feet, to allow redevelopment or even new development to better reflect what's actually out there on these lots. The second issue we came across was lot coverage. Maybe not as important if you have a little bit wider lot, but a lot of the corner lots in particular have been split. And so you'll have one lot that was intended to be 1 is now 2. And the lot coverage we have right now is 45%. So our recommendation is to increase that to 60%, which would just allow you to have a little bit more building area. You still would have 40% that you have to have in landscaping or driveway or something that's not a building.
That's not just the dwelling, but any accessory buildings, right?
Right, that's for everything you put on there. That's a building. Also in this, our current zoning districts, as I mentioned, our minimum lot size is 9,000 square feet and our lot width is 60 feet. The lots that are out there don't even meet that. Now, we do allow people to develop on them, but if we were to have someone come through and want to put in a new subdivision and kind of maybe replat some of these, they would be stuck with our old development standards. And so we're proposing that we reduce the lot width and the minimum lot area, just to be able to allow some flexibility. The project that Shara had, those are all going to be rented, but if someone wanted to do something like that and have them for individual ownership, this would allow it because you're having narrower, smaller requirements. And then density, and this is talking specifically about accessory dwelling units, which I want to spend a little bit of time on if you guys will bear with me. An accessory dwelling unit is a second unit. It's intended to be smaller in size than the primary unit and typically is located to the rear. Quite a few communities have these. We don't have a whole lot of them, though when we were going through our review process, at least one of our planning commissioners has one on his lot. He lives over in Southwest Bricktown. Well, these accessory dwelling units can be very helpful for increasing density, but really not really having huge impacts to the neighborhood because they're kind of hidden. And we see it as an opportunity for grandparents, parents, children, to people who are typically related but not necessarily related to the property owner, to have a separate dwelling unit on the same lot. And we've had some inquiries about this. Right now, our code does not allow it.
Janet,
So-
could I build an accessory unit and rent it out?
You could.
As part of what you're
You
presenting?
could. What we're proposing is that the property owner would live in the primary dwelling. So you could have your relative or you could rent it out. That would be our proposal. And here's some standards that the steering committee recommended that, you know, if you're going to do one of these, it would have its own at least one parking space. It would be screened, so you'd have to have some fencing.
And it would be on a foundation.
Oh,
so
yeah,
you
permanent
could-
foundation,
Yeah.
had water, sewer, yeah, all
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Well, I see we have a little bullet insert size requirements. Here, I think we're going to have a minimum of 400 square feet would be a recommendation. And then it would definitely have to be smaller than the house. And we haven't narrowed down that percentage yet.
This would not be considered a tiny home then?
Well, it could be a tiny home.
As long as it meets
But
the
it's
But it
gonna
has to
be
be on a
fixed.
permanent foundation.
Permanent foundation.
Permanent foundation.
Yeah, and that's, I think we have tiny homes in here, don't we? No, maybe not. That's part of what we're also looking at, but not necessarily with this. We would require that each of these have their own utilities and access. So here's the proposed standard. If you're going to create this funky two-lot deal with one behind the other, that you would have to have easements for each one, so that the guy in the back can get out and the guy in the front maybe could have his utilities, depending upon where those are located. And then parking standards, we looked at other cities. Our standards are a little high compared to some of the other cities. And so what we would recommend in this new zone would be that we reduce them basically to one standard per unit, that off-street parking. They could have, if they have additional cars, they could put them on the street. And then here's a kind of interesting way, if you had like a triplex you built, you could accommodate the parking at the rear.
From a title standpoint, are you talking a lot split or not?
For the accessory dwelling
For the
unit,
accessory
no,
dwelling?
those would
You
be
are
on the
not.
same, those would be on the same property.
Same property,
Because the same person would own both of them.
same
Yeah.
person would own both of
Mhm.
them, not a lot split.
Not a lot split. So if you wanted to do the lot split, that would look like this. This is two separate dwelling units, and they're attached by the garage there.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Right now, our code doesn't allow any of this. We're kind of pretty much, we took suburban standards and we applied them uniformly across the city. But that really wasn't very fair because properties really south of 17, those were built prior to there being such a thing as, many of them, even automobiles.
Right.
And so the lots were long and narrow, not wide.
Yeah.
So this is just an attempt for us to try and figure out, well, how do we accommodate this? And then how do we maybe maximize, one of the things that we come across in Housing Commission is there's a gap. Well, how do you accommodate that gap between what it costs to build and what it's going to be worth? And one way is to increase density.
Increased density.
Yep.
The access easement, as depicted there, the driveway,
Mhm,
correct?
yeah.
If there's alley access, does that easement have to be there? There's alley access to the back dwelling?
It wouldn't necessarily have to be.
And again, if you're talking about narrow lots, they probably isn't the 10 feet to.
But
grant through
I would
access
say that sometimes it would depend upon where the garbage is picked up. So if your garbage is picked up in the alley, we want to make sure that the guy in the front house has a way to get back to the alley. Yeah, so if you could do it through the utility easement, that would be okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, we'd have to look at these case by case, but what I think the key is that we're acknowledging
That there's got to be access.
you have to
Right.
provide for this. We're not going to let you fence across,
Right.
blocking your neighbor to the front's driveway or their access to their utilities. Okay, parking. Another thing on parking, right now, I don't know if I had the issues, I guess I didn't have that. Right now, we only allow 40% of the front yard to be in pavement, which is great. It works great if you have a big front yard and you're, up off of 30th. But if you have a very small front yard that's only 35 feet wide, or in this case, this lot is only 33 feet wide, that 40% doesn't even get you one parking space. So you basically can't park your car in the front, but then people do. They park them on the grass. So what we're recommending is that we increase that standard to 65% in this zone only to allow people to be able to build a driveway and not be out of conformance with our regulations. Because we wouldn't even let them build a driveway, so they're stuck. They're like, okay, you won't let me build a driveway, and you won't let me park in the grass. So this would address that.
You're calling it a driveway, but it'd be building a parking spot, correct?
Yes.
It
Well, we
basically-
call that a driveway.
Yeah, parking pad or
Parking,
platform or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the parking on the grass is a huge problem.
And it would have to be paved, concreted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Asphalt.
Or asphalt.
Asphalt millings with slurry seal or concrete.
Yeah.
We allow all three of those in the residential zones. So at least they would have an option when we send them a violation letter saying, hey, you can't park on your grass. And then accessory structures, again, we're just proposing reducing the setback on those. Our current setbacks are 5 feet. And a lot of these accessory structures that are in existence right now don't meet that. That would be like a shed or a garage, detached garage. Along with the accessory structures, we're proposing that if they do access from the alley, that they maintain a 10-foot setback, or else they turn the parking like we've shown here. We had some concerns that backing out of a garage into an alley with only 3 feet of clear space could be dangerous. So either one of these two options, the green check marks would be okay, but the red, we didn't feel like that would be very safe.
Did I read correctly, if one has an existing garage under the red X, it could be replaced on that existing footprint.
Right, and we actually allow that now. We changed the regulations a couple of years ago to allow that because we didn't feel like it was fair to penalize people for where their garage was built. Yeah. And then there's several other issues that we identified that we didn't spend as much time discussing, but I just want to run through them pretty quickly here. We would recommend allowing smaller multifamily developments to be permitted by right without having to get any kind of special permit. And I think we're thinking the threshold would be 4 units or smaller. There are actually some big houses in this R6 area as well that could lend themselves to being converted. Or there's also some places where there's infill lots. They might be able to do something like what Shara did, but just smaller. Then to create some design requirements for those multifamily developments so that we can ensure that they still meet the character of the neighborhood, and we don't turn our southern part of town into a bunch of high-density apartments that don't look like they fit in. We need to do some amendments to our code to reflect federal and HUD definitions of family and household.
Would that particular item apply citywide then?
Yes, yes, that would, as well as the protected class issue. And basically, there's some classes that are protected. You cannot discriminate against them in any way in housing. So you can't say, well, if you're this group of people, i.e., for instance, you're handicapped, and we have the group homes, you can't require those people who are in a protected class, I shouldn't say those people, but you can't have different requirements for them than you have for you and I, if we're going to move into a single-family dwelling. Now, yeah, if it goes over a certain number of people in the home, yes, but, and our code needs to be fixed. It's not really in line with what federal regulations are. This one, we've got a little controversy on when we went through our steering committees. We would like to change the interpretation for neighborhood standards to allow new metal as an approvable material for accessory structures. And I think for the accessory structures, for the most part, that was seen as favorable. But what was controversial was the potential to allow that throughout the city. So that's something that we wanted to discuss with you guys. I mentioned to a couple of the council members, for us at the counter, that is probably one of our most frequent no's. People come in, they want to build a metal garage or a metal, and I'm sure you've heard complaints, or a metal shed, and we have to tell them no because it doesn't fit the character of the neighborhood. This would allow them to, our proposal would, we were initially just proposing in the R6 zone, but some of our committee said, why don't you open that up to the whole city? Think about that.
Yeah, Jen, I had a couple of citizens call me with the intention and desire to build a certain type of a carport. And they'd visited with the planning department and so on and said, no, you can't build this type of a metal carport versus, and they called it something, I can't recall what it was. So are you suggesting that you would modify that you would allow this, some kind of a curvature roof? I can't tell you what the name of it is, so help me with that.
Yeah, Carolina carport.
Okay.
I don't know if we'd go that far, but we've been pretty restrictive in not allowing very much metal at all. So I can bring pictures of Carolina carports. It's really a community decision. If this is what the community wants, then we probably should be allowing it. And if it's not,
well, we have a bunch of them.
Yeah,
I mean, they got.
Yeah, I've seen them. Scattered here and there. Yeah,
right.
Driving.
But in some cases, they're wanting to build them out over the setback.
Right, or in the front yard.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be proposing changing that. We're just saying if you're in your backyard and you want to build a metal structure, does the community, is that a community issue? Does the community care, or do we support it, or what is our feelings?
I think in the subdivision that we live in, I thought when we built there that there were some covenants that prohibited metal storage buildings.
Right.
Probably are.
Probably
And
are.
that's
So
a very
that's
good point.
different than a code.
Right, so covenants are enforced.
Covenants are enforced,
privately.
difficult to enforce, but they're there.
Right, so the city doesn't enforce covenants. And,
Right.
Your homeowners association
Yeah.
has to do
Yes,
that.
Right.
yes.
But I think one of the questions you raise is, because it happens a lot, is they've got a house and they've turned their garage into the living room, so they no longer have a garage.
Mhm.
So they want to build a carport on the driveway out in front of the house, which would be, you couldn't build a garage out there because you've got the setback, houses are
Yeah.
all like this. And so there's a difference between some of those where they want to put them. And so the question is, even if they put it behind the setback, we don't allow the Carolina carport.
We don't
now.
allow the Carolina ones
What is
at
the
all.
Carolina?
What is
one?
the
They're
Carolina?
kind of-
It's a metal thing and it has an arc like
yeah,
that over it.
They're very inexpensive. You just pop them
Are
out.
they just pop them up? Yeah, I've seen
Okay.
several of them, yeah.
No, not the beehive.
Not quite the beehive.
No.
What's a beehive?
Aaron's gonna pull up a
Got
picture
a
for you
picture of
guys.
it?
Oh,
Yeah.
Darren's got one.
Yes,
Bad example, but.
this is an example of a Carolina carport.
Oh, okay.
Can you
Yeah,
guys
I've seen
see
it. I know.
Yeah.
They kind
Yeah.
of look a little bit more agricultural.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
in nature.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably why the city.
Looks like a Quonset hut almost,
Right.
without the
Just cut 'em.
Mm-hmm.
sides.
No sides.
No side,
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
sides.
no
yeah.
door, of course.
Yeah.
So, we think we need to make some movement, we're not sure what. Also, if you're building on an infill lot, our recommendation would be that we require street trees and sidewalks, particularly if they're on the rest of the block, so that the new development doesn't stick out, and that we would actually try to develop programs to help assist with some of that sidewalk and street tree installation. We also recommend amending the residential infill incentive. Right now, it's only available for homeowner occupied projects, single family. I'm sorry, not homeowner occupied, single family. But we would recommend allowing it to open it up a little bit, placing a $5,000 cap on it, and then right now every single one of those has to come into here. And what that is, it's a rebate on your building permit fees and your water and sewer tap fees. We would propose that those be allowed to be approved at staff level, not because we don't want to bring stuff to you, but because it delays the applicant by at least 2 weeks. And then, where would we want to put this? Well, our original proposal was the areas in dark red. So the dark red, the northernmost limit is on 11th Avenue here. And then as we went through the committee review process, all the lighter pink areas were added. Because the committees thought, well, Caryville, the areas up between 11th and 17th, a lot of those have narrow lots. And then I think our final area of addition would be the College Grove area. We have some folks who live in that area that are on our commissions, and they said, well, that area is exactly the same. Why wouldn't we allow it there? So let's see, let me get a pointer out. So that College Grove would be here. So
Basically between the two pink areas at the top.
So our proposal would be to allow to retrofit R6 zoning basically everywhere south of 17th that's zoned residential now, except for some of the larger lots. There's some transitional agricultural areas, and there are some properties on the west side that are very large. We wouldn't recommend it for those large lots. So here's all the committees that have looked at it so far and the dates when they looked at it. And based upon going through, there's a couple of things that we would want to amend. We just didn't amend the document. But some of the things we think we would want to change would be to require ADUs have a deed restriction put on them so they can't split those lots. Reduce the open space requirements for multi-family design standards. We have had a proposal we think is a little high. One of the changes was the new metal accessory structures citywide, allowing for the protections, not letting them be in the front yard and so forth. limiting the number of multifamily developments, the number of units to the 4, which I mentioned, including College Grove, which I already mentioned, and then basing the accessory dwelling unit square footage from the total finished square footage of the primary structure.
Say a little more about that one, please.
So I think initially we had, it couldn't be any more than 33% of the primary structure. But if your primary structure is 1,000 square feet, that would put you at 330, which wouldn't meet our minimum dwelling unit size of 400. So we're gonna have to work on that language a little bit to figure out, well, what would be definitely a smaller, but big enough to be a unit.
Okay.
If that makes
So maybe you could do
sense.
a percentage with a minimum of.
Yeah, it could be a percentage and with a minimum. Yeah, that's probably how we would do it. So where we would recommend we go from here, if you guys are willing to launch us, would be to hold town hall meetings in both of the city council districts where this new zoning district would be present. And that would be Mr. Deckens and Commissioner Soldner's districts. Our council member Soldner's districts. And we've already talked to them. We're thinking those would be held in April. And then have a presentation of just similar to what we had, but maybe more in a station kind of format where people could go from one station to the next and hear about the proposal. And then based upon the feedback that we get, develop our ordinance, go to the Planning Commission in June and City Council back here in July for adoption. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Can you go back to that previous slide on the metal buildings again? I'm just curious in terms of what was the tone of the discussion of the 4 or 5 commission groups that you met with in terms of what the sentiment is there and what their recommendation is?
You know, we have
Citywide metal building?
We have a lot of varied people on our commissions.
Yeah.
I think it was once we got to the Housing Commission, which has realtors, more realtors than the other. They're the ones that said, why don't we let this happen citywide?
I see. Realtors.
And I think it's because they're the same as us. They're the ones dealing with people who are moving into places and they think, oh, I'm going to move in, I'm going to build this big shop or this big garage in my back. And, you know, the kind of the perception is, you know, perception is 9/10 of it, right?
Yeah.
The perception is the city doesn't want me to invest in my property. And so it's not reality, of course, but it's hard for us to say, well, I know your building is going to cost $30,000 and I know you're going to do a good job and I know it's going to look nice and I know your neighbors don't care, but we're not allowing new metal. So that's kind of where that conversation started. So the Housing Commission was the 3rd place we went, I think. The Development Review Committee, which is made up of staff, they also echoed that because, of course, Trent, he's at the counter with us telling these people no. So that's kind of where it came from. You know, I don't know how you guys feel about it. We could definitely put a survey out on our website. I don't get complaints about people building a metal garage for the most part. I get complaints because they can't build one.
That's what I was going to ask. So is there a lot of demand for that? A lot of people inquiries?
Like,
He's
what
laughing,
would you
so
say?
yes.
What percent?
Obviously, there must be.
Is there really?
Yeah. Okay.
We haven't tallied them, but I don't work at the counter very often.
Sure.
And every time I go there, I have at least one.
Yeah.
So I know it's a.
Can you identify what part of town those folks live in? Is it all over? Is it? It's everywhere.
But we're not dealing with metal houses.
No, this would
No.
be just
Just
accessory
strictly
structure.
accessory buildings.
Accessory buildings.
And those accessory buildings will be subject to the rules in place, like I said, setbacks behind the main building, all the other rules that
Go
apply.
in.
Yeah, and they'd have to be new metal, not, you know, I found this metal shed somewhere.
That I want to move in. Okay.
Yeah, that I want to move in. They'd have to be new.
And I can't salvage good metal to build this shed either.
I'm
correct?
sorry, Steve.
I don't want to, but I
You
can.
can't do it.
Okay.
I'm just trying to think, and there's other suggestions. We did have, one of our housing commissioners said, well, could you require it they'd be complementary in color? And then another housing commissioner's like, well, I wouldn't have a problem if the house is ugly, if this shed doesn't quite match it, I don't really care. So I don't know, we could ask that too of our residents. you know.
My other question would be maybe some inclusion of some brick facing or something on it. I don't want to get into all the weeds on this thing, but.
See, and typically, it's not an issue with, I mean, the person who wants to do it, it's the neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's the neighborhood,
Once
yeah.
it's done, and some neighborhoods, like you say, have covenants, but for the most part, they're old and gone.
They're old and
Nobody's
gone, yeah,
enforcing them.
exactly.
And so you won't hear about it too much until you put one next door to somebody. And it's like,
Mhm.
wait a minute here, this shed is taller than, I think we regulate the height and all
Yeah,
that.
we regulate
Yeah, we
the
don't
height.
height.
And it can't.
You know, there are some
upsize the
neighborhoods that
house,
people
yeah.
buy a house in and expect it to look pretty much like it looks,
Yeah,
for the
just
most part.
Conforming with the siding
yeah.
of the house itself, frame or brick or whatever.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, I think it's a little bit dangerous just to open it up, but that's just
But are
something
the
we would deal
restrictions
with down the road.
with regards to metal building pretty tight? Again, you can't put it in the front yard. It can't be bigger than the house. I mean, there's a lot of.
We have a lot of restrictions on it, but since 2011, or I think maybe this was this was 2012 when this went in place, we haven't allowed a metal accessory structure unless they were on both sides, they were prevalent in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's anywhere in town we haven't allowed them.
What about peer cities that have similar housing stock to ours and such? What?
None of them have a metal restriction.
None.
None.
Interesting.
Yeah.
really?
We are unique.
Comment I wanted to make to metal sheds, I think if we're going to allow them anywhere, we will allow them everywhere. Now, that's not to allow any old structure, but either we stay where we're at, or if we're going to change, we change, but it's a citywide change, not a neighborhood change.
I mean, some of them look very nice. I've got a metal garage just down the alley from me, looks great. I do object to what I call the silver caterpillar on 17th, which looks like a Quonset hut, which looks like it belongs out on the farm.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if there's a way to deal with aesthetics.
Would something like that be allowed? Again, if it.
Well, now, no, but
No.
we could deal with that in our design standards.
Yeah, I mean, if we can control that kind of thing, I would be more willing to open stuff up.
To piggyback off of that, I kind of like the idea of, you just use the term design standards, but I kind of like the comment that came out of, I think, the Housing Commission to think about color coordination or neutral versus, I don't know, I'm not sure what metal sheds come in terms of colors, but something that just kind of jumps out and yells at you.
I think they come in any color.
Anymore, I think.
But
Yeah,
I
anymore.
think
Yeah.
design I made my comment, I'll still stick with it, either nowhere or everywhere. But I would be interested in some good design standards.
Yeah, I mean, aesthetics, you can't control taste, but hopefully we can control aesthetics to some extent.
I may be in the minority, but I guess I would stand with continuing as we are, with not allowing them throughout the city. I may be in the minority.
All right, well, here's our next steps, and what we are asking for you to do today is not agree to anything really, except for just
Yeah.
letting us move forward
Yeah.
and go talk to the residents and
Talk to the
make
residents.
sure that, at least in the R6 zone, we've reflected
In the R6 zone.
what they're willing, or what, the needs and the desires, and none of this would be a surprise to them or out of whack with their desires. And I think it kind of goes to what the gentleman who was here earlier today talked about, well, yes, we feel like this is important enough that we probably should go into the neighborhoods and talk to them. Not that we don't think everything's important, but,
Yeah.
there are time constraints.
Well, John, I want to compliment you and your staff, and of course it began well over a year ago. I mean, before the study by the KU folks, I mean, it was something that was being discussed by your department, and we had some discussion here, and I think what you presented to us is, it may need some modification or some tweaking, but a darn good piece of work. So congratulations to you and the staff. I think there's some good ideas there. And obviously involved a number of people in terms of the various committees and commissions that we have to take a look at it.
I'm anxious to see what the the people, the masses think, you know, because like I said, we may have our own hangups about metal buildings. They may say, I don't give a rip, and, you know, build what you want,
right.
and, and who knows. So it'll be interesting to see what becomes of that. Yeah, wow, well thought out. I told Aaron this once, I attempted to read a book that was published in 1961 called The Death and Life of Great American Cities by Jane Jacobs. And I know you hit upon a few of the things that she was a proponent of, density and various ages of buildings and different areas and things like that. So well done. I still have not finished the book, by the way. I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not. Very thick and a lot of words.
I do have one additional comment I wanted to make. I think I wrote page 16, and I'm not sure what's there exactly, but that's where I put my note when I was looking at this material. But I wanted to strongly support when it comes to, I think that's titled design requirements or something like that. Neighborhood design requirements, yes. That happens to talk mostly about sidewalks and trees. I strongly support that. I wanted to extend it a bit further because I don't know if it's in here, but I think that bringing in new construction in established neighborhoods can, even though it's brand new, almost look not good because its design is such that it sticks out like a sore thumb, and it might be new and pretty, but it just doesn't look good in the neighborhood. So I would hope that there would be, I think you do have a comment about multifamily and design requirements, but even if it's infill single family, that it fit with the nature of the neighborhood and as well.
Okay.
With that being said, it sounds like we're at a pause, so I would be willing to move to approve the residential infill study implementation plan and authorize staff to commence the process of amending the zoning regulations.
Second?
Okay. Been motion and second. Is there any further discussion? Linda, call roll, please.
Dave Line?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Inskeep?
Yes.
Deckent?
Yes.
Item 6D, consider supplement number 1 to federal fund exchange agreement with KDOT.
Poor Jeff.
Thank you for your patience, Jeff.
That's all right. I can be patient. Good morning, Jeff Peterson, a senior civil engineer with the engineering department. Today we have a supplement to our agreement that we originally signed in April of 2016. Last year, the Kansas Department of Transportation indicated that they were going to change their federal funds exchange program to make it more revenue neutral for the state for when they get the federal funds in, so they don't have to supplement it to kind of administer the program. So this reflects some of those changes. This supplement reflects some of those changes. The major ones are, one, communities used to be able to bank those federal funds for a number, like 2 or 3 years. The state would keep it, and then you could request it all at once for a larger project. That wouldn't be available anymore to those the communities that take part in the federal funds exchange program. They want you to use the funds the year you get them.
Okay.
Because sometimes their allocation depends on what funds have been expended and what funds that they have already that's coming from the federal government. So that's one of the things. They also want to change the language referring to a specific exchange rate. The secretary, they've changed it to allow the Secretary of Transportation to determine the exchange rate for the program. In the past, it's been 90% of the funds that you request you get. On the short term, or right now, they're changing it to 75%. But they want to make it so that could be changed by the Secretary of Transportation, depending on, I think, administration costs and those types of things for these types of programs. So those are the two major changes that are included in this supplement. This funding has been quite beneficial to the city because it allows us to do projects that we wouldn't normally be able to do, or use the funds for what we wouldn't be able to do if we had to follow through all the federal requirements, such as our residential street maintenance program, and that's what these funds actually go to each year, or some of our arterial street projects also, the mill and overlay type things. We'd have additional requirements to follow, and it would take longer to get them up to speed, and they are trying to encourage everybody to use their funds expediently so that they can keep turning over and getting the benefit from those. So,
How complicated, or I'm not sure what word to put there, will the no banking, what will that create for us? 'Cause I know we've banked.
We have in the past. I don't know that it changes anything. We've kind of come around to where we've been the last couple of years, been requesting things.
Using it as it came in rather than banking, okay.
Right.
So
you make a request and then you do the project and then you actually request the funds back. That's how this project works. So based on the bills you have, if they're over or at what you are able to request, you just give them like one of our pay requests and then they reimburse the city. That's how those work. So it doesn't really affect the way we're doing business now. Those are kind of figured into our budgets and things like that as we speak. So
I think they're getting overcharging on their exchange rate. I
well,
don't think they're
that may, but we don't. That's not our.
We don't
choice.
control that. I realize it, but I think 25% is an awfully high administrative fee.
So
I would think there'll be some conversation as we move forward because this just came up and kind of faced with it in 18, and it's a.
And if we don't agree to this, I take it we can't exchange at all.
Correct. We couldn't exchange. We'd have to reevaluate which projects we would even be able to do, and see what we can fit into the program to comply with the federal regulations. So we do get between $400,000 and $500,000 a year.
A year
is what we do get off of this. So
it's all about the highway bank for the benefit of others. Not its intended purpose, but I'll stop there.
Well, and I think we're going to see huge changes at the federal level. So, I don't. Yeah.
But anyway, I do recommend approving this, and it's a supplement to our KDOT agreement number 8816 for the Federal Funds Exchange Program that was originally approved in actually April of 2016.
Is there a motion?
Okay, I will move to approve supplement number 1 to the KDOT agreement 8816 and then authorize the mayor to sign.
A second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Linda, call the roll, please.
Daveline?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Inskeep?
Yes.
Deckent?
Yes.
Item 6E, consider authority to award contract and commitment of city funds for Grayburst Safe Routes to School.
Hello again, Jeff Peterson, Senior Civil Engineer with the Engineering Department. The Kansas Department of Transportation originally, this will go back for a little history here, but originally notified the city that its application for safe routes to school in the Grayburst school area was approved in 2014. In 2016, we actually approved the formal grant agreement for this project, which the maximum grant is $200,000 of state funds. The city matches 20% more to make a project of approximately $250,000. So that's kind of how this project works out. They've worked through the design and all those portions, and actually this is administered by the Kansas Department of Transportation too. So in January 17th, they didn't award bids. They opened bids, and the low bidder was Bryant & Bryant Construction of Wichita. The initial bid included all of these sidewalks and improvements. That being said, you can't add to the project if your bid's low. Does that make sense? If you haven't already planned as much or more than what the project could handle. So with that, the bids were higher, so we had to pare down the project, and that would be the next slide here. So in order to get it within the project constraints of the budget, it includes some intersection improvements on 17th and Plum and 17th and Severance, as well as replacing some existing sidewalks and new sidewalks along 17th Avenue from Plum to Severance Street, and then 16th Terrace also, adding sidewalks to that street. So the others at this point weren't able to be included.
The outlined area is what
correct.
Is in the bid.
The cloud area. Well, yeah, all of the red were included in the bid, but what we had to do is reduced that to actually just only include the stuff that's in the kind of the clouds.
That's in the cloud?
So,
Okay.
so, and that brought us down to a construction cost of $222,771 with Bryant and Bryant Construction out of Wichita. With that, though, this is kind of the city's blessing on the project that we have funds available to pay for our portion also. So that this resolution includes accepting the bids and then pledging funding of $57,000. In past years, we actually had these funds in past CIPs, and also there is a grant from Hutchinson Community Foundation that has helped to make this move forward. So that so that's kind of the project as we are right now. We do recommend the approval of the bids of $222,771 from Bryant & Bryant and the associated funding resolution in the amount of $57,000 with the Kansas Department of Transportation. So,
Hey, Jeff, a question. I'm just trying to get my bearings on. When Don Michael Field is used, there typically folks have a tendency to want to park there on 17th Street. Will they still be allowed to do that or not?
Yes, they will. And actually, the sidewalk along 17th Street in the area of Don Michael Field is on the south side of the fence.
It's on the inside.
What's on the inside? Oh, okay, it's on the inside.
It's widening the existing for the whole length of that.
Gotcha.
Because there's a portion of that that's pretty narrow. And it's not,
Yeah, I see where you're talking about.
along there. So
Looks like somebody's helping you out there.
they are. That's good because I need that help. So
Okay.
it's magic, I guess. So
The areas south, in more of the residential, that will not be part of this project, will that be something we'll pursue through another application, or?
I don't know. That's probably something we haven't gotten that far. Honestly, that might be something we consider. There's other schools that have probably safe routes to school issues also. So
Does that funding even still exist?
I honestly don't know
Okay.
today. So
Okay, is there a motion?
I would move to approve authorizing the mayor to sign the agreement for the Safe Routes to School project with the Kansas Department of Transportation and authorize payment in the amount of $57,000 to KDOT when invoiced.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Linda, call roll, please.
Dave Line?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Inskeep?
Yes.
Deckent?
Yes.
Item 6F, consider approval of force account agreement with KDOT for Graber Safe Routes to School.
okay, Jeff Peterson again, Engineering Department. This agreement is for the city, or the city actually requested that we would do the construction engineering services for this project. It's similar to what we did with the left turn lane on
Right.
K61 and 4th Avenue. So we get reimbursed a portion of the monies for the work that's done out there. This one does have an upper limit of $33,244.50, and it's really based on the time we spend out there. It's not a fixed number. So that's kind of how this has worked. So when that project actually commences, we would be out there doing what we would be required to do, and we might have some outside testing costs that wouldn't be reimbursed in this, but it does, I think in the whole scheme of things, this does save us some money on hiring an outside firm to do that type of inspection. So some of the funds will come back to us a little bit for that work. So we would recommend that the council authorize the mayor to sign this force account agreement for construction engineering services for the Graber Safe Routes to School project.
Okay.
Questions or a motion?
I would move to approve the force account agreement with the Kansas Department of Transportation for city-provided construction engineering inspection on the Graber Safe Routes to School project and authorize the mayor to sign.
Is there a second?
Second. Sorry.
Any further discussion? Linda, call roll, please.
Dave Line?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Inskeep?
Yes.
Deckent?
Yes.
Item
Thank you,
7,
Jeff.
report of city officials.
Dave? Anything?
Brief, if I might. Had a great President's Day weekend. For those that are saying there's not things to do in Hutchinson, I beg to differ. This weekend alone, I was able to see Beauty and the Beast. I was able to run underground in a 5K, and I was able to attend a gardening seminar that was put on by the city. And all three were great and fabulous and had a great time. The second piece was a peer of mine shared with me a very brief article that they had come across, and I thought it was kind of apropos to Hutchinson and our current environment and things like that. And if you'll indulge me, I'll be brief. I'd like to read it. It's written by a woman named Becky McCrae, who has I think a blog called Small Biz Survival, and it reads, I get a little frustrated when people tell me their town is dying. That's because from my outside point of view, your town is not dying. It's just exactly what it is now, no more, no less. To some extent, your generation determines what you think about your town and whether it's dying. It's not that your generation defines you, it's that how long you've been around determines how much history you've seen and what you'll compare the present to. If you've seen decades of history of your own, it clouds your perspective. You want to compare today to how things were 20, 30, or 50 years ago. Even though you know we're not going back to that, it's hard to overcome that memory. During your lifetime, things have changed. Technology has changed. Demographics have changed. You've changed. But you still remember how it used to be. That affects how you see things today. You remember when downtown was full of traditional retail stores. When you don't see those same stores, you may be tempted to say things like, downtown is dying. You don't see the non-traditional businesses that are spread all over town, where people are doing businesses from their laptops and their smartphones. You aren't aware of the million-dollar company with no employees operating from someone's house. You haven't shopped at the retailers who are selling only online and shipping all over the world. It's not about bringing your town back. It's about bringing your town forward. I just thought it was kind of, it hit home when I read it. There's not much of a crowd here. Hopefully somebody out there heard that. and various boards and various other committees and associations that I'm volunteering for, we have a mission to try and bring the town forward. And I thought she captured that very well in what she had said.
Yeah,
So that's all I wanted
would
to share.
agree. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, David.
Very good.
John?
I know the hour's getting late, but I thought Andy, who was here earlier under oral communications, I appreciated him coming forward today. I don't have any, burning anticipation in terms of how we might modify the way we conduct ourselves. I know it's been discussed in the past. Changing meeting times, and that lasts for a little bit, and then we get back to the normal schedule. So I don't know. I think it's just worthy of us to think about what Andy said today. I think there's some of that reality out there, particularly with social media and Facebook and so on, that even in our communication methods here at the city, whether or not we look at different ways of really trying to keep the public and our citizens informed in terms of what we as a city council are all about, and being good listeners. Absolutely. I don't have any suggestions or recommendations, but I thought it was worthy that we keep an open mind to it.
Oh, absolutely. And transparency seems to be a kind of a buzzword, certainly at the state level, and it should be the same here. He mentioned at the end of his comments that a reference to the Wizard of Oz and a peek behind the curtain. I think there is a connotation that there's something going on behind the scenes, some sort of agenda or whatever. And I think our only agenda is the betterment of the city and hopefully its citizens and things like that. But if we can find a way to get that message across, I'm with you. And I still encourage anybody listening, if they want my ear, go ahead and shoot me that email. And I'm trying to be very responsive to those.
It's interesting, John, that you mentioned specifically evening meetings. I've thought about bringing that up.
Yeah.
I guess I'd say to you, John, I'd be interested. There's cost. I know in terms of staff in an evening time, and if it's been tried before, I'd be interested in knowing how that went or didn't go. But anyway, good comments.
Yeah,
Do you have anything else?
No, that's all.
Nancy?
And I don't really have anything either, except I on the evening meeting thing, I think the school board has moved its meetings to, they used to meet at 7 o'clock, and I think they've moved them back to 6. You know, so looking at non-traditional structures and times, I think is probably worth our effort. So, see what comes up.
See what comes up.
And I don't have anything to add. John?
A couple quick things, just a reminder, a study session on February 27th. That's the continuation of our work on the comp plan.
That's at 8:30?
8:30. And then,
Thank you.
some time ago, I sent an email out to the council, got a letter requesting from the USD 308 that the city waive the graduation fees at the sports arena. And
That's right.
I've been wanting to get this letter off my desk one way or the other. As you know, we put together a new rental rate structure for the sports arena that the council approved a couple months back. And we specifically mentioned, staff did, that what this would mean, looking at this schedule, that the USDs would be looking at $1,000 a day. And plus some of the HCC custodial. In this case, for the school districts, 313, they've already agreed to do that, would waive the setup fees because the stage and a lot of the chairs are already set up for their graduation. So my point of bringing it up today is whether this, you want it as a formal agenda item or just a consensus that the council wants to waive it or not waive it. And I would remind the council that probably this year I'm not sure we've had, but maybe 1 or 2 revenue paying events at the arena.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so all that work on a rate schedule.
Rate schedule.
Not very many people actually pay anything. So yeah, I just need some direction on what you want to do with it. We're talking, and you recall we talked back then when we did the project that the arena probably cost us about $1,200 a day just to be there, regardless of whether anybody's there or not. So.
Well, John, I believe that we spent a pretty significant amount of time, and I know staff and others did as well, and I remember that we sent it back, we being council, to staff to do some more work on it. And I specifically remember we talked about school graduations and what the expense might be. And now hearing that HCC is not going to assess their cleaning setup fees, I'm all the more in favor of staying with what we decided, well, what was that, 4, 5, 6 months ago, as far as fees, not only in this case, but across the board in terms of use of the sports arena.
Yeah.
I think in light of that waiver, I would support that we would continue waiving that $1,000 fee to 308 and 313. Those are the only 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm saying.
John,
Steve's
in opposition.
I'm saying hold the fee the way it is. And I don't think you're saying that.
No, I'm not saying that. No,
Okay.
I'm saying waive it.
See, and at first blush, I tend to agree with Steve that, we put the work in. It is there for a reason. There's other school districts that are going to utilize it. Are we going to look at those and so on and so forth? The part I struggle with is they're all taxable entities. All the money's coming from the same pool. And if you take it out of one, or you're not taking it from the other, and so forth. And I haven't completely put that to bed in my mind yet on how that works. I know that we also pay some fees for utilizing some 308 facilities. I don't know what's as simple as lowering those assessed fees on us, offsetting that, or is that moot?
We don't
pay. I think that's what Mr. Price's argument was, that the Rec Commission uses 308 facilities, and while the Rec Commission is not technically part of the I mean, it's not the city.
The city, yeah. Okay. So the
I
city
think that
does.
was his rationale.
And is that? I guess we did determine that is factual. The city itself does not pay any.
I don't believe we do.
Fees.
But the Rec
Hutchinson
Commission
Recreation
does pay fees to the USD 308
pay.
when they use the facilities on the weekends when there's
Okay.
no. The letter indicated there was no charge.
Yeah,
but there is a
that's
charge.
what he
And I think
inferred.
I sent that out to you.
That's
so
right.
Right.
back.
That's
Yeah. And the rec is its own taxing
It's its own entity.
entity. Okay.
It goes through us, but it's its own entity. Has its own board of directors.
And I guess that's where I struggle.
I guess my feeling is you had indicated that the school districts were made aware of that cost prior to
A year or two
right
ago,
now.
yeah.
And
Didn't tell them what the amount would be, but that
no,
there would
because you
be a
didn't
fee.
know.
Yeah.
Probably didn't know there'd be a new administrator at the time either.
No, no, and I
Right.
doubt that information was shared. I guess I'm still with go ahead and charge them the fee. But
I think that's where I fall as well then,
Mhm.
until I hear something that dissuades me from that, but I haven't seen
Yeah.
anything yet.
I mean, otherwise, why even bother to have fees? You know, if we're going to waive them every time.
Yeah, we've met since that time and with, the CVB chamber on other charges for other events, and it's just like it's never, but what was interesting, the email I sent out to you that showed what our fees to rent to a basketball tournament in the summer would be compared to USD 308, and our fees were actually less.
Lower.
A little bit less, yeah.
And the thought is that we're the only ones, charging for the use of our facilities, when actually the sports arena for that event would be a lesser charge to that group than if they rented the USD 308 facilities. Yeah. So I thought that was good news to feel like we're well out, we're not just way
competitive.
out there.
Yeah,
And, at the end of the day, these amounts aren't gonna, really mess with that subsidy of that we have at the sports arena, but as we know, in the past, there's very few events that we host at the arena that even pay anything up to now. Now, hopefully, more of those types of revenue-generating events are going to be there. So, but we'll never, and I don't think there's any expectation that we would ever cover our operating costs. It's the economic impact that these events bring. So,
correct.
That's I just wanted consensus. I'm going to notify that if there's a formal request and the USDA wants to approach the council for a hands-up vote, then they can do that. So, okay, that's all I have.
All right.
No lunch.
A motion for adjournment, please.
So move.
A second.
Call roll, please.
Dave Line?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Inskeep?
Yes.
Decker?
Yes.
Oh, boy.
10 minutes to lunchtime.
I passed
Gotta
a
wait
couple
for it.
things.